The tape was ground. Shut up. The tape. What's ground? What's the tape? We do it a little bit different around here.
We ain't gonna play. Shut up and grind the tape.
The tape was ground.
We ain't gonna play. Them dogs in your face.
Was ground.
We ain't gonna play. Shut up and grind the tape.
The tape was ground.
We ain't gonna play. Them dogs in your face. Shut up and grind.
Was ground.
Grind the tape, bro. Grind the tape, bro. Grind the tape.
The tape was ground.
Grind the tape, bro. Grind the tape, bro. Grind the tape, bro. Shut up and grind. Grind the tape, bro. Grind the tape, bro. Grind the tape.
The tape.
Grind the tape, bro. Grind the tape, bro. Grind the tape, bro.
The tape.
UGA game day, boy, we ball out. Pull up, put the whole conference in the doghouse. Leave them 6 feet, see me on the win streak. All-star status, go coach and the bench deep. Offense on 10, how we run it? Your best ain't nothing, we gon' send them boys punting. Black and red, got them dead on arrival. Defense hunker down for the tie. Hey, you don't want it with the dogs. Found guy on it, you don't want it with my dog. Break it down, play by play, that's the day-to-day. They know we ain't gonna play, boy, it's UGA. Kirby Smart, I cannot play the fool. Back to back, we did not come to lose. Back to back, like we got something to prove. Pay your dues, dog nation on the move. What's up?
We do it a little bit different around here.
We ain't gonna play. Shut up and grind the tape.
The tape.
We ain't gonna play. Them dogs in your face.
Was ground.
We ain't gonna play. Shut up and grind the tape.
Shut up. Was ground.
We ain't gonna play. Them dogs in your face. Shut up and grind.
Was ground.
Grind the tape, bro. Grind the tape, bro. Grind the tape.
The
Shut
tape
up and grind.
was ground.
Grind the tape, bro. Grind the tape, bro. Grind the tape, bro. Shut up and grind. Grind the tape, bro. Grind the tape, bro. Grind the tape. Shut up and grind. Grind the tape, bro. Grind the tape, bro. Grind the tape, bro.
Shut up.
Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to MBR, or as we like to call it around here, Nothing But Rants, the show where I find topics that I'm oddly passionate about and I pontificate upon them. These are not hot takes, but rather takes that I'm hot about. What's up? You really like that?
Let's shut up and grind some tape.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome in to the Film Guy Network on a fabulous Tuesday evening, brought to you by our friends over at BetUS. And as always, we got a loaded show for you guys. Apparently, YouTube's algorithm is requiring predictions to be done basically on Sunday evening. So we got to do predictions tonight just to get into the play of the algorithm. We got predictions on a Tuesday, all right? Brent Venables provided us a quote. Lane Kiffin took a shot at Hugh as well today. But I want to open with this, all right? I always like to open with something most of the time. I want to open with this today. Sometimes, man, it's probably best to just ignore the elephant in the room, right? It's definitely not best to point it out and let everybody know where it's at and say, hey, look over there, that elephant. That's not a good idea for most football coaches in particular. Sometimes it's best to let people run with their own narratives as opposed to, quote, setting the record straight. I think we've seen countless examples of this in recent memory, just in the world of college football, relative to college football coaches in general, because they feel the need sometimes to come out here and, quote, set the record straight. Famous examples of this, guys, in my opinion, are Jimbo acknowledging sliced bread, right? Going out here and acknowledging sliced bread was an obvious, like, hey, what are we doing there? We probably don't need to be doing that. Anytime Hugh goes to a microphone, I feel as if he's, subject to do something like this. Anytime Dabo does anything like attack Tyler from Spartanburg, all you're doing is drawing everyone's attention to something that doesn't necessarily need to have your voice on it in terms of setting the record straight. This list goes on and on of college football coaches who, like I said, feel the need to get their piece out or say their piece about a particular topic only for it to ultimately blow back in their face. Brent Venables has obviously been under some heat as of late due to the offensive performances out there at Oklahoma. And unprovoked during his press conference today, he felt the need to kind of point out one of these elephants in the room, right? That being obviously the Dylan Gabriel storyline that has come out over social media as of late of kind of nana boo-boo and poking at Oklahoma saying, hey, man, why'd you run this really good quarterback out of town? If this was what you were going to turn to, you have this great defense, you're wasting it now. Venables, again, unprovoked, thought it was necessary to provide a quote on this today. Quote, I would because somebody brought it to my attention. There was a story that was written, and then he kind of threw his hands up and said, not that it really matters, but at the same time, at the end of the year, had a meeting after a few weeks at the end of the season where Dylan Gabriel came to visit me, Venables said. He wanted to have a meeting and let me know that he wasn't going to play in the bowl game. I already had gotten wind, and he knew some other guys were opting out on the offensive line and things like that. I didn't know at that time that he wasn't going to go to the NFL when we had a great conversation with him. Disappointed that he wasn't going to play in the bowl game with the circumstances of Coach Levy leaving. He thought he wanted to get closer to home, closer to Hawaii. And then he continued. I was like, I didn't even know I had to fight this fight. I didn't realize that you were even going to consider coming back, he says. And he says, yeah, but I just really want to get closer to home. We hugged, shook hands, and it was a really, really emotional, but it was all really good and positive. All right, so this is what stood out to me in this, gentlemen. All right, this quote right here. I didn't know this was a fight I had to fight. Immediately followed by, I shook his hand, tapped him on the butt, gave him a hug, said, appreciate you, real emotional, we're going to get going. Buddy, he let you know there was a fight to be had. And you let everybody know, based off this quote, you wasn't out here fighting. Now, why weren't you out here fighting? Probably because you thought Jackson Arnold was pretty good, which kind of brings us back to the point. I don't know why we felt the necessary or the need, rather, to come out here and say, hey, guys, I know y'all been talking about this whole Dylan Gabriel thing. Guys, he wanted to leave and get closer to home. I didn't know that was something I was going to have to fight for, and I chose not to fight for it.
This is the equivalent of a girl going up to a guy and being like, hey, I think we need to work on a lot of things in our relationship. I'm unhappy right now. And him going, shit, I guess we got to see other people. And then when people ask him about it, like, hey, why did you two break up? It's like, she was unhappy. Things weren't working out. I had no other choice to have. Like, he made it clear that he didn't really make an effort. And honestly, that might be more of a red flag.
Yeah.
Yeah, it certainly is. But I don't know why you would kind of – it's funny to me when coaches try to keep themselves out of a conversation, but at the same time, they're also snitching on themselves a little bit, and they just walk them – because eventually I feel like coaches at some point, some coaches are really good at avoiding the topic, but then others kind of just walk themselves into it without even realizing it. I think Venables is an example of this by – he was trying to just kind of put it to rest, put the conversation away by saying like, he just came to me, said that he wasn't going to play the bowl game, and that was that. Like, I didn't tell him, hey, Jackson Arnold's going to be our starter next year, but he kind of did by saying, well, he came to me, said he wasn't going to play, and I was like, okay, well, good luck.
We just causing more headlines.
Yeah,
I feel like we and especially not having been asked about it. Someone in the Oklahoma beat must have wrote an article about this that was apparently presented to Venables, and he threw his hands and was like, not that it really matters, and then went on a 90-second answer as to why it indeed mattered that the article was written, and he felt like it was an improper representation of what went down. But the representation of what went down was, hey, coach, y'all had a quarterback leave that went to play for another team, and this other guy isn't very good. And that was presented to him. He came to the microphone and let everybody know that this guy wanted to be closer to home. 900 miles closer to home, by the way. I looked it up today. 3,100 miles from Norman to Hawaii, 2,200 miles from Eugene, Oregon to Hawaii. About a difference of a 50-minute flight, so says me. But anyways, let everybody know that, hey, this guy let you know he was leaving, and you didn't know that there was a fight to be had, and then proceeded not to fight. What?
That's like a 2-hour flight at minimum.
900 miles?
Yeah.
Yeah, probably. Let's give it an hour 10.
All
Jet stream.
All right.
You know? One of those things.
I don't know anything about jet streams.
But no, it's the equivalent also of him throwing water on a grease fire, trying to put it out. And he just made so much worse. And I don't think what he did helped the situation at all. He clearly was trying to put it to rest and like, yeah, we would have loved to have him come back. He wasn't coming back, and that's unfortunate. But we ultimately decided not to pursue him. That was not the right answer at all.
Yeah, it's just – and now, look, now you got to stand 10 toes down. What happened happened.
Mm-hmm.
And regardless of if you did decide to kind of quote-unquote push Dylan Gabriel out, or even if he just elected to – like, you know, if Jackson Arnold did win the position battle for you essentially last year, I mean, at this point it is what it is. The past is the past. I would just kind of move on from it and keep it away. But that was not how Brent Venables elected to go about this.
Well, the problem is now you're putting yourself in a situation where the more you make this a story, the more you make this a headline, the more you bring attention to this, the more it's going to be brought forth whenever you lose. You know, let Jackson Arnold, let whoever else have another bad game at quarterback, let you lose another game because of a poor offensive performance. You are consistently going to be hounded by this, and it's going to haunt you for seasons, honestly, especially depending on how Oregon does this year. So it's very reminiscent of, you know, the Kirby Smart, Justin Fields. Kirby Smart got criticized for his Justin Fields decision all the way up until he won the second national title with Stetson Bennett. And even still today, some people remain that he made the wrong decision.
I don't think Jake Fromm was ever the reason Georgia lost football games. I think you could have said Jake Fromm not being great might be the reason they didn't win.
Did you watch that South Carolina
That South Carolina game, okay. Two pick sixes, not great. All right, that one. But other than that, I think for 3 years as a starter, we always felt like as a national narrative, hey, this guy's a game manager, but he's not going to lose you games. This Jackson Arnold performance was a loss.
Yeah,
you know,
definitely.
So I think that's a slight difference there.
That's fair, but like I'm saying, it's more of the public thinking you made the wrong quarterback decision. Correct. Is going to follow you for longer than you'd like it to. This is not a one and done thing this season. This is going to follow him next year. From now on, here on out, your ability to scout the quarterback position is going to be questioned.
All right, we turned the audio up just a little bit. That's what you guys saw me doing over there in camera 4. So hopefully it sounds a little bit better. I checked it on my phone. Just turn that junk way up. I think it'd be all right. Until we play some audio later when Lane jumps in. That's probably going to blow your head off if you got some headphones in. I apologize for that. Guys, we've been bouncing back and forth between hosting softwares. Not that you need the curtain pulled back on this show, but this is the unit, by the way. I think a lot of people watch this show and they see how fancy it looks and how many different camera angles we got going on, and they think we got some massive production unit. No, we don't. All right, it's the three of us, and we run here in Mom's basement, and we do it well. So when there's things that are coming up on live air, we had DJology in here last night fixing our audio on the new software system. I guess Streamlabs or OBS wasn't consistent today. So that's on us. We'll try to continue to bounce back and continue to adjust here. So hopefully you guys can improve. Said audio did improve about 10% from the adjustment. That sounds right. That's what I did. All right. Welcome in. We got a great show for you guys tonight. We do indeed have Week 5 predictions for you guys, including that Georgia-Alabama game coming up at the end of tonight's show. We got best bets with our boy Kirby. 9 and 10.
Had a horrible week.
9 and 10. Had a horrible week. Your boss lost money. He's not happy with you. It is what it is. We're going to get back on the right track this week. Or maybe the wrong track so we can start fading you. Either way, I told you, no lukewarmness around these parts with the gambling. Either be really, really good or really, really bad. Don't be in between. All right, so that's my thought process on that. We got the Lane Kiffin shout out Hugh Freeze a little bit later on tonight's show as well. But first and foremost, I want to give a quick shout out to our friends over at BetUS. If you're looking for a new book this season, BetUS is indeed the answer. Guys, they have a 150% sign-up bonus on your first deposit and 125% on the next two deposits up to $2,000. Using code YouTube150 right now, okay? BetUS is where we do all of our gambling around these parts. That I believe personally they have the best lines available and the most up-to-date lines, and very, very user-friendly. The withdrawal and deposit process is really, really simple over there at BetUS. Shout out to those guys. Again, YouTube150 over there. Make sure you're signing up. Make sure you're depositing using code YouTube150. Let's get over to the board. Let's do these best bets.
Let's do it.
I've got to put my lab on. So we got that going on. Kirby, what do we got this week? I'm going to need that keyboard, by the way. Jay will.
I will bring it to you.
I got
bring
it.
it to him. Wow.
I'll come to you.
Never mind. I will not bring it to you.
A lot of cables for well, I really just don't want people to see how tall you are in comparison to how short I am.
You're not that short. You're like, what, 6 foot?
6'1.5".
Right.
About 6'1.5". Easy now.
What?
Easy now. 6 foot. That's why I'm the scout who guesses heights and weights and not you.
A whole inch. Wow.
You shortened me an inch, brother. I need that. I took every bit of it.
All right.
All right, here we go. Whoa.
Took every bit of it, huh?
Chill out, bro. We got Diddyisms later. We're talking ball right now, not making people laugh. All right, what do you got for me this week, Kirby?
All right, so coming off of a very, very bad 1-4 week, that USC and Georgia Tech game were just tough beats. So first one, try to get back on the board here. Virginia Tech versus Miami. I'm taking over 54.5 points. Cam Ward, I trust him to score points. Kyron Jones has also showed he can score points. It might be throwing the ball at the back of the end zone, but I like that line.
Can I just say something right now? If you're not following me on Twitter at BrooksAustinBA, you need to be, because I'm 5-1 on my locks this season. Mans is 9-10. I'm 5-1. Might be getting my locks on Friday, so you can get them in. Just letting you know.
That's right.
But go ahead, continue.
Next one's Ball State plus 20.5. They almost did. Did you watch this game?
No.
Almost a horrible beat last week, but they ended up covering. They're taking James Madison this week. 2% of the bets and 35% of the money are on that, so it's very heavily sharp-heavy for Ball State. They won me money last week, so I'm going to trust them again. My only correct pick last week.
What is that, the Red Hawks?
20.5.
That's the Ball State Red Hawks?
Yeah.
What do you got next for me?
Next one is Old Dominion versus Bowling Green. I'm going Old Dominion plus 9.5.
Boy, you are digging deep in some slop, ain't you?
Had to, man. Had to after last week.
Don't you dare do this.
I'm sorry. Look, I think a lot of the public watched what Bowling Green did last week against Texas A&M, and we're very impressed. Let's be honest. That's the only time people watch Bowling Green. I think the public really, really liked what they saw. I'm a little bit fading on them for that. 1% of bets and 41% of money are on Old Dominion right now. I like Old Dominion.
Hey, remember, Old Dominion gave South Carolina a little sweat.
Hey, Bowling
Green's
Green's
done
done
it
it twice. Penn State and Texas A&M.
Yeah, yeah.
You just don't like that poo uniform.
No,
I'm with you.
The brown is disgusting.
I can't hate on that. Maybe they'll bring out the orange.
Next, we've got Arizona plus 11.5. This is another.
Ew.
Yeah, I know.
Ew.
I know.
Ew.
2%.
Your trusted buddy from San Jose State that wears a lei? No way. Ew.
2% of bets, 41% of money. It's a risky play, but I'm going for it.
I feel stupid even letting my money go down on this line. That's crazy.
All right.
I'll trust you.
This
one
card
last
is
week, and then I'm
wild.
fading you next week. I'm taking the reins next week.
card is
All right.
ridiculous.
All right. Final bet of the week is
This
Auburn
card is ridiculous, by the way.
Auburn versus Oklahoma. I'm taking over 45.
Oh, a singular primetime game that's going to be available on national television on the list here.
Hey,
That's
man.
crazy.
You love ball, you love ball.
You're taking Auburn?
I like this line because I think there's going to be a lot of turnovers and a lot of opportunities for points off turnovers. We're going to see probably 3 to 4 quarterbacks rotating in this game because of how much these two offenses are trying to figure shit out. It's going to be a lot of turnovers. I think you're going to get a lot of plus territory possessions. You saw this last week with Auburn and Arkansas, a lot of plus territory possessions. They unfortunately weren't able to punch it in. I would like to bet they can punch it in more this week, especially with Oklahoma's offense desperately scratching. So I'm going over 45.5 on that.
All right, here we go. Here's the line. All right, those are the 5 bets of the week. All right, we got who's that? You took Miami.
Miami and Virginia.
The over at 54.5. You got Ball State plus 20.5. You got Old Dominion plus 9.5. Arizona plus 11. Auburn plus 2. You like dogs and overs this week, huh?
Yeah.
All right. I don't trust it, but we put it in. It's in the book, so we'll see if we lose money again this week. Again, next week, if we take another losing record this week, Kirby, we might have to start fading you as an audience. I'm just gonna let you know. But again, be one or the other. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Be one or the other. Don't be in between. Don't be out here lukewarming the bets, man. We got to have some type of profits for somebody other than Bet
I would
US.
like to be winning a lot.
All right. Prediction time?
Let's do it.
I hate this.
Yeah, I don't like it either, honestly.
I'm going to complain about it even more during the local hour, but I really hate having to do this.
I hate it more because it's like we get the predictions out of the way, and then you realize, oh, we have to still do 2 more shows.
See,
after this.
the additional 4 hours, at this point for us, not a problem.
It's not a problem, but it feels like the prediction should be the peak of the takes of the show. So when you do that, it's like, okay, well, I just gave kind of my layout for this. Now I have to give segments for 2 more days. It's weird.
I just feel weird going from here's my week 4 reactions to the very next day. I'm giving you my predictions for week 5. I don't know. I just like being able to have a couple more days to like really think things over and give you my true, authentic predictions and thoughts.
Jonathan, do me a favor. Write down Alan Berry's super chat question, which is, my question is, who are you thinking might have the advantage on the line of scrimmage? Good thing for Alan, we have a whole entire segment dedicated in the local hour to positional previews on the line of scrimmage. We're going to take a look at Georgia and Alabama's offensive line, defensive lines in a vacuum, and then also give our analysis on their matchups that they have this week. So a great time to be right here on this show, especially come the local hour when we really hammer down on this Alabama-Georgia football game, even though we do have an Alabama segment at the end of this national hour before we spend an entire hour talking nothing but dogs and elephants. So that'll be fun. First prediction. Let's get into it. Oklahoma at Auburn. This is on the slate for you, Kirb, so let's go ahead and let you start with the analysis.
Yeah, I like Oklahoma in this game. I think Oklahoma's defense is going to be the best unit on this field the entire game. It's going to be a sloppy game. It's going to be ugly. It's two teams trying to figure things out on offense. Like I said, you're probably going to get a lot of turnovers. But at the end of the day, I trust Oklahoma's skill set just a little bit more on the offensive side of the ball. And I think that defense is probably going to be one of the better ones Auburn faces all season. So I'll go Oklahoma 28-20.
How about you, Jalen?
I don't even know if this game is take a peek worthy unless you're just kind of wanting to keep up with Michael Hawkins.
You want to see good defense?
You might want to see good defense. You might want to see, hey, Michael Hawkins, is he going to actually win this job moving forward?
You want to see trash offense?
Yeah, if you're in for that, absolutely. You want to take a peek at this.
Just in for misery?
Might even watch all 4 quarters every minute.
You probably really love that James Bond torture scene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
The
one where he's sitting in the chair?
Yeah. The bottomless chair.
Who likes that one?
That's Auburn offense right now. Yeah.
But
definitely for Auburn.
I do think this game is crucial for both programs moving forward this season. I feel like a loss for whichever team is going to be on the losing end of this. I think this is going to heavily impact the rest of your season because that's going to be a brutal loss. 2 brutal losses back-to-back for whichever team takes a beat. So I think that this is going to be a defensive matchup. I'm going to side with Oklahoma because I trust Oklahoma's defense to make more plays on Saturday than I do Auburn's. So I'm leaning with the Sooners. I think Oklahoma's going to win a really low-scoring game. I'm thinking like 20-14.
Line on this, team totals, I think it's at just under 45 points. So I think we're all going to be hammering the under here. I don't love the idea.
Except for me.
Except for him.
You. Which is goofy. I don't love the idea of your first road start in the SEC being at Auburn. First road start in general. First start in general for the freshman in Hawkins. I don't love that at all. Say what you want about Auburn's offense as of late. The defense has been playing really stout football. Granted, they haven't exactly played juggernauts offensively, though I would say Arkansas has put up about 500 yards of total offense through 3 games prior to playing Auburn. So they played a pretty good unit last week in Arkansas and Taylor Green and made some plays on the defensive side of the football. That being said, I don't expect a ton of points in this football game, and I think Auburn's defense and home field advantage could potentially win this football game. However, Oklahoma's defense, in my opinion, has a better chance of winning it, and Auburn's offense has a better chance of losing it. I think that's the key in this football game, right? Oklahoma's defense, we believe, especially after watching last week, that's the top 10 defense in this sport. We all think that?
Yeah.
Top 15 easily.
Top 15 easily. We'll argue for top 10. And we think Auburn turnover margin bottom 3 in college football right now. Yes. So I think that's the difference in this football game. I got Oklahoma winning a defensive shootout 18-17. Defensive shootout, a little oxymoron there.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, it doesn't really exist unless you just arm the defense with some weaponry, and then they have a shootout amongst themselves. I think that's what we got going on Saturday on the Plains.
On Plains. I like it.
So we're all in Oklahoma?
Yeah.
Yes. What? You don't feel good about that?
No, I think it's a very tight football game. Honestly, I think Vegas has got it right by putting this as a 2-point spread. But I think it should be a pick 'em. To be honest with you, that's why I got an 18-17.
Yeah.
My initial score prediction said 18-16, and I was like, how are they gonna get to that? So I just rounded it off 17.
Smart. How are they gonna get to 18?
What?
How are they gonna get to 18?
6 field goals.
Yeah.
Duh.
6 field goals.
That's
a lot of settling. A lot of settling in some red zone.
It's gonna be electric.
Oklahoma
settling
Sooners.
on the Plains.
Oklahoma State, K-State.
Let's do it.
Should we move on? Let's move on. Guys, did you know that K-State hasn't lost back-to-back football games since 2021?
I did not. That's actually impressive.
Yep. It's a get-right game at home for Avery Johnson and them boys. Oklahoma State can't run the football right now. Their run game is really, really anemic. They're having a very tough time getting it going. I don't expect K-State to be the team that you get it out here going against. However, we did know from earlier in the season, K-State's pass defense, not all that great. They showed up in that game against Arizona. I expect that defense to show up in this game. Give me K-State 31-24.
I can't remember really a time where the one thing that your team was known for coming into the season has been one of the worst aspects of it. Oklahoma State cannot run the football right now.
No.
And even though, Mike Gundy has been, going on booze cruises and handing Ollie Gordon the ball 50 times, like, they still can't run the football. This is a get-right game for K-State. I think I have them winning 28-20.
I think this game I know it's only week 5, but this feels like the game that might decide who gets second place in the Big 12 and who's going to end up playing Utah in the conference championship. I know it's early to say that, and what we know about the Big 12 is we don't really know anything about the Big 12, but that's just kind of how I feel about this football game heading into here. The Ollie Gordon struggles are weird, and they don't make sense to me. And that just kind of fits in with how the Big 12 has been this year.
But, like, what I want to know, and I'm not going to spend my time breaking down Oklahoma State offense, but what I want to know and what I might call somebody to figure out that has been great breaking down Oklahoma State offense is it's not like teams just now figured out that Ollie Gordon's good, right?
Yeah.
5 games in last year, everybody knew. You got to stop Ollie Gordon to beat Oklahoma State. So everybody was dedicating their entire game plan to stopping Ollie. So why is it different this year? What is the reason y'all can't get this guy loose? When, again, it wasn't like last year they were worried about your mustachioed quarterback. You know what I mean? Even though he threw it 45 times a game last year. They were still chunking it all over the yard last year. And running a bunch of offensive plays. They just can't get this guy loose.
And they still have the same quarterback. So it's not like you had really this –
Yeah, mustachio.
Yeah. It's not like you had this drop-off at quarterback necessarily because it's the same guy that you had last year. I think that Oklahoma State's running struggles, I'm going to stay away from that. I don't like them in this football game. I do like Kansas State being able to bounce back. I'm taking Kansas State 27, Oklahoma State 20.
We would all agree once you curve it up, we go from a mustache to a moustache, right?
Yeah, probably. I would say
Just
that.
a little too fancy for just a standard stash. That's a moustache.
You're putting too much effort at that point.
Yeah, for sure.
You think
That's
it's
a
too much effort?
That's a second game. Curling it up, yeah.
You don't think you'd ever rock that?
Nah, I wouldn't let it get that long. It takes like months to let it grow that long.
I mean, that's not that long. I thought you were going to tell me it takes years.
Like 6 to 8 months, like half a year before you can do it. And during that time, it's like all on your lip and everything. So
I wouldn't know.
Speak from experience. Trust me.
Would not know.
That's the second game we're all on agreement.
Can't do it. I think we're going to have some disagreements coming soon, potentially. Well, I don't know. I think we all think Notre Dame sucks. Louisville at Notre Dame. What do you guys got going in this football game?
You know what? Tyler Show been playing some good football.
Same note.
Same
football.
note.
Tyler Show is playing really good ball right now through 3 games.
68
turnover free.
Turnover free,
Same
8 touchdowns,
notes.
850 yards, 68.4 completion percentage.
It's Shuck. Tyler Shuck.
There's no way. Sorry. I don't even care if Tyler himself told me that's how you enunciate that.
That's spelled SHOUGH. That's pronounced Shuck.
No.
In what shucking world?
Yeah, no. I completely disagree with that.
I didn't name the boy.
Again, if Tyler himself told me that's how I'm supposed to say his name, I'm still calling him Show. So
Sorry,
it's Tyler Show.
Sorry, Tyler, you're wrong.
Tyler Show been putting on a show, all right? That's what I'm trying to say right now.
Hell yeah.
You know what? They're also averaging 8.42 yards per play on offense.
No.
They're averaging 47.3 points per game on offense.
Jonathan, Louisville's got 2 running backs averaging more than 10 yards a carry right now.
Man, I'm telling you what. Louisville got something going on offense. Notre Dame absolutely doesn't. Notre Dame, though, does have a top 10 scoring defense. I don't care, though. I'm taking Louisville 24, Notre Dame 20.
Notre Dame,
trash.
not a great
Garbage.
football team. Not a great football
Coach
team.
plugs his hair.
Here's the thing, though. Georgia Tech kind of showed us something in that game, other than the fact that special teams absolutely matter.
I mean, you can say that.
2 special teams touchdowns and
You're
a
right, bro. Go
12-point
ahead.
loss. But they kind of showed you that a team that can kind of sustain drives by running the football can give them issues. I think if you negate those 2 turnovers, that's a very different football game just from the time of possession. Georgia kind of pushed Louisville around, and Notre Dame is a team that wants to run the football. I think this game will be a lot closer than we're expecting it to be, but I would still go Louisville in this. I would go, you know what, screw it. I'll go Notre Dame 24-21.
Switched it up right
I want to be different.
I'm leaning on these explosive data points lately. I think it's just the key. You know, it's the key to success in college football. And this is something that Lane Kiffin and Kirby Smart have been talking about for, 2 or 3 years now. Louisville, super explosive football team. Notre Dame, not so much. Give me Louisville 27-24.
27-24, nice and simple.
Same note.
Same note, baby.
On to the next one. Illinois at Penn State. This one's got a fun storyline. Don't know if you saw it. Bielema put his foot in his mouth. Have you seen this?
Oh, I have not.
No.
Oh, yeah. Bielema accidentally did it. It was asked about the crowd noise and all this stuff, and Bielema said, I think they encouraged everybody to bring their white energy, whatever the hell that means. And I've already seen Penn State's football account already doing it. They've already got a video on the big board at that stadium already with Bielema going, whatever the hell that white energy means, and then it says get loud, third down. Man gave him a little bit of juice and a little bit of bulletin board material for a fan base that, let's be honest, doesn't really need it. I don't think Penn State fans and the 100,000 that they're going to pack that stadium with need extra motivation for your 19th ranked team in Illinois coming to town.
This is just bad, because I guarantee you Penn State coming to this football game is like, Illinois, ranked football team? The Fighting Illini, though, I ain't buying it.
The football team's already ready. I'd imagine James Franklin's like, hey, this team's real. The fan base is like, Illinois is coming to town.
Illinois.
You know? Now.
Why would you do that?
Saying a team is bringing white energy to the stadium is – I don't like it.
I don't like it.
Not one bit. But no, I do think Penn State's a better team in this game, and having the home field advantage. And yes, it is, the quote unquote whiteout that they get once a year now, or multiple times a year because they haven't been getting night games as much. So I like Penn State in this game like 30-17. I think they're just able to out talent Illinois.
Yeah, I think 17.5 is way too many points in this football game for Penn State, which is where the line is at right now.
18.5 I saw on
It's
ESPN bet.
Jeez,
Yes,
no. Yeah, there's way too many points for me in this football game. I think it's going to be your classic Big Ten, stand on your defense, baby, and bring it, because that's just standard Big Ten football, and these two football teams are built on that principle alone. But Penn State definitely has the better defense, and I think that they have the ability to make some more plays on offense, despite how well Luke Altmaier has been playing at quarterback for Illinois. So I'm sticking with the Nittany Lions in this one. I have them winning 31-17.
You're also coming off of a really taxing win on the road against Nebraska. Now, it was a Friday game, so you had that extra day of rest to prepare and things, but those games still take a lot out of you, just not even physically but emotionally. So I think Illinois is going to be kind of caught sleeping in this game.
That 18.5, every time I see a line like that don't make sense to me, I'm just like, Vegas knows something. Something's fishy. Something's going on here. And I stay away from these football games normally when I feel some type of way about them. Like, hey, Penn State kind of sleepwalking the last 3 weeks. They beat a really, really bad, what we've come to find out is to be a bad West Virginia team. They stumbled through Bowling Green. They beat the shit out of Kent State. Now they got a real opponent coming to town. I think this might be a sleepwalk performance. However, they know something. Vegas knows something about the difference in talent on these rosters, I would imagine. Give me Penn State 27-20. The only reason I think this game's relatively close, I believe Brett Bielema runs a professional program. I know it didn't go well at Arkansas, but didn't it, though? I thought Brett Bielema's run at Arkansas was probably one of the better ones under a coaching regime in the last not Petrino years, you know what I mean? So I think he's a good football coach. I think Luke Altmaier is a good college quarterback. I think it's enough to make this game close, but I think Penn State's talent obviously overweighs at the end.
Yeah, this would be kind of classified as one of the wrong ones for Penn State. While it is a ranked opponent and it is one of your bigger matchups of the season, it's just like every single game that isn't Ohio State, it's going to feel like it's the wrong one, because losing 2 games with this schedule, we've kind of said this all season long for Penn State. If you got to go 11-1, you're locked in, but you go 10-2, it gets hairy real quick.
I gave my point on that. I think that Illinois is going to come in a little tired. I think Penn State's going to come in pissed off, and they're a better team, so they're just going to lean on them.
Pissed off.
We are saving our Alabama-Georgia predictions for the local hour, and folks are already threatening me in the chat. Thinking that they're going to influence or sway my decision on where I might be going on a Tuesday evening on this football game. And you just might do it. You just might do it. I don't know. Stand 10 toes down?
No heart.
That's what we do.
No soul.
That's what we do.
Consistency. Don't cower to nobody.
Amen.
Brooks looks a little tired tonight. Buddy, I am. Buddy, I am. I didn't do a good enough job, sidebar here. I didn't do a good enough job of maximizing the bye week, of taking it off, getting rest, sleeping, doing what you're supposed to do. I worked it like I normally worked it, and,
Rookie mistake.
Yeah, I'm feeling it. I'm feeling it right now.
Bye week for a reason. I
But
woke
hey,
up.
Foose it is. Foose it is, right?
That's all you need.
We got Foose that thing. Lane Kiffin, want to do this?
Yeah.
Let's do this. End of prediction time. We'll see you in the local hour for that. Lane Kiffin was out here doing the Lane Kiffin thing where obviously Hugh Freeze came out here and threw everybody, most especially his quarterbacks, under the bus. Lane was asked about relationships with quarterbacks, I would assume, today during the press conference, and decided to take it not so subtly into a shot towards Hugh Freeze. Play that sound.
Relationship, I just think from on the field, there's a trust level there of, we spend a lot of time with him and then let him play too on Saturdays. And I just think that, like you said, it started one way. I think that, you build that, especially for a guy that we didn't really recruit out of high school, any of that, didn't have a previous relationship. And I think it pays off, when you have relationships and the quarterbacks trust you too, and you go back to Matt Corral when he threw 6 interceptions, and before I even got to the media, sitting down with him, telling him, we got to do a better job calling plays. I got to coach better, and don't worry, we got your back. And so I think that goes a long ways, and goes a long ways with kids in recruiting, of knowing what they're going to get when they get here from a relationship, and that they can trust us to have their back.
Is he one of the biggest coaching globs in college football history?
You asked me this while the audio was playing, and I had time to think about it. I think Sark goes into that discussion.
Yeah, for sure.
Because of the off the field stuff and the problems and fights with addiction. But Sark never was hated.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
this
to
guy
be
was
fair,
hated.
Sark was never. People were never out on Sark because of his coaching abilities. It was always like he's got some personal things to deal with. People just hated Lane Kiffin and wanted to see him fail. To where it feels like now, like everyone kind of enjoys him. Now there's still, the older demographic, the 35 and up, that he's a pompous ass, I hate him, whatever, that's fine. But the public perception on Lane Kiffin has changed tremendously, and it's because of things like this.
We all know that Auburn isn't the only football program trying to flip Deuce Knight, right?
For sure.
We know that Deuce Knight's from the state of Mississippi, right?
The sip.
I think this is what this was. I think this was a not so subtle, hey, if you're going to flip anywhere, you might as well come over here because that guy's going to bury you every time he gets an opportunity to do so. We treat our quarterbacks with respect. We like to develop a little bit of relationships with them. By the way, Hugh Freeze not only doubled down, triple down, quadruple down, quintuple down, he sexed it.
Sextuple.
Sextuple. He came back down on it again last night after we got off the show. Apparently, he was in a Auburn radio station out here telling folks if they played Arkansas 9 more times, they'd beat them 9 times out of 9.
Cool, dude.
What are we doing?
That's just a bad look for you because you're telling me that you have a team that should beat another team 90% of the time, and you manage to let that 10% show through as the head coach of your football team.
It's not funny because it might. I don't think it's going to cost him his job, but it's definitely trending negatively right now. But how quickly this narrative of patience turned into a narrative of frustration in Auburn. This whole offseason, all we were told about is how, hey, Auburn's got this bevy of resources that they're waiting, all right, because they're more than a year away. They're more than a quarterback away. Just wait. They're starting to spend it on the recruiting trail. Just wait. Momentum. Gates are about to open up. They didn't trust that Brian Harsin guy. This guy's got everybody's belief around the program. Buddy, I think we're losing a little bit of that every time we open our mouth in front of a microphone right about now. At least from a national narrative. I don't know how boosters in Auburn feel about this guy, but I would imagine the recruits that are getting recruited by this guy are getting told consistently, look at what this dude does.
Well, if there's anything that we know about Auburn's boosters is that it can change rather quickly. And if you lose to Cal and then you go and lose to Arkansas and then you go and follow that up by losing to Oklahoma, things are going to change very quickly. All 3 games will be at home, correct?
Yeah.
You lose those 3 games at home, I think I think it definitely turns up a little bit for Hugh Freeze. What I do want to say about Lane Kiffin, though, is that he has become this likable guy. But I think part of the reason why people love Lane Kiffin right now is that he hasn't been viewed as a threat by anybody on the national stage. Like, nobody thought that Lane Kiffin was going to go and win national titles. And if he becomes like this namestay in this national title conversation and he becomes like this legitimate force in college football, I think that's when people start to turn on coaches because then it's shoved in your face constantly. And
he's a threat for get ready with me content creators.
How about that?
Yeah.
How about that?
And to be fair though, the more you win, the less likable you are. Just simply because people want to see you lose at that point. But I agree with you that people do kind of like Lane Kiffin because he's not at the top of the sport just yet.
It's just a fun coach out of Ole Miss, making Ole Miss relevant. He's got a really fun offense. Well, all that fun stuff turns into really annoying by opposing fans when it's like, dang, bro, now he's just beating us all the time, and everybody wants to talk about Lane Kiffin, and nobody shuts up about Lane Kiffin. I think this is kind of what happened with Kirby Smart. Is people loved Kirby when he initially got to Georgia because it's like, oh man, we got another guy following in Nick Saban's footsteps. He's doing a lot of good things he brings the intensity, the energy, and now it's like, oh, Kirby's so corny, like all this other stuff. So I think it changes quickly, and it's based off of relevance.
Based off relevance. Do we think they handle business against Kentucky this week at home?
They should.
I would think so.
I think that people are still really in love with what they saw during that Georgia game. And look, they have a good defense. They can be multiple. They can disguise coverages in certain ways. But I'm just not convinced that their offense is enough to overcome anything on the road. Ole Miss's offense is high-powered enough. They're going to have the home field advantage. They'll handle business. I'm not worried about it.
I think that, the big thing for me in this football game is that it is in Ole Miss. Knowing these home and road splits for Ole Miss, it makes a difference to me. I think that Kentucky's defense can do some things maybe to Ole Miss, but the Kentucky's offense still just isn't quite there. I think they're still figuring things out. I don't know that a road game against Ole Miss is the game to do it, and especially hearing that Lane Kiffin understands that his football team has not been prepared for an SEC football schedule yet.
Wasn't that a wild quote?
Yeah, I think that makes me feel like he's going to have his guys ready for this football game, and especially like once you as Ole Miss, once you see what they did to Georgia, how Kentucky played against Georgia, that kind of alerts everybody else like, hey, this isn't a team that we can just walk into here against and just roll over them for 4 quarters and come out with a win. We have to actually play some football.
All right, we got buy, sell, and hold coming up, and I just made this segment up on the fly. You ready? All right, here we go. Buy, sell, hold. Are you buying, selling, or holding Missouri Tiger stock right now? Because I already killed them.
Hold.
I didn't just sell it. I shot it, took it out back, buried it.
Hold it.
I think I'm going to hop on you with selling it because I was suspicious of Missouri before the season even started. The roster outlook to me was a little fishy. I never thought that Brady Cook and Luther Burden themselves was going to be able to carry this team to a national title because I kind of think that Brady Cook's ceiling gets a little bit overblown because he has Luther Burden on his roster. Brady Cook – he's a good college quarterback, but he's not one of these elite talents. I don't think that he's one of these guys that when you think of elite quarterbacks in the country right now that you could put a team on his shoulders. He's going to carry you for 15 games to a national title. So knowing that a team like Vanderbilt gave him some issues, Boston College gave them some issues as well, I'm super hesitant on them, so I'm going to sell it with you.
What is the stock for? Is it playoff team or national title contenders?
Let's go title contenders.
I would still hold it, honestly.
How about playoff? Well, you're holding playoff if you're holding title.
I would buy playoff because people are so off on them right now. Look, the schedule didn't get any harder. Yeah, they had one slip-up game against Vanderbilt, and they didn't look great against a pretty good Boston College team. Let's not jump ship immediately because we had one bad game. People are saying the same thing about Georgia.
Fair.
Absolutely fair.
Fair analysis. Are you buying, selling, or holding Utah as a legitimate playoff team?
Sell it.
You're selling?
Sell it.
As a legitimate playoff team?
I mean, they're going to make the playoff. I'm talking about when they get in, are we just assuming that they're going to get their ass beat?
Sell it.
Yeah.
Sell it and sell that old-ass quarterback with them.
All right, let's do this right quick because I want to expose our audience or ourselves as analysts. Who's watched a singular second of Utah football? Who's watched a full quarter of Utah football?
I watched the fourth quarter.
I had a full quarter of Utah football on a TV. I didn't sit down and actively watch it, to be fair.
Because I know what I did. I saw Wilson playing. I saw the fact that Oklahoma State wasn't going to score in 17 quarters. I looked away. And I looked up and go, ooh, Lil Wilson's running down the sideline. That's cool. They scored. Awesome. Didn't watch that one. And I don't know how many times I'm going to sit down and watch Utah football this year, especially with the slates that we got coming up. Mm-hmm. So I think this is going to be one of those football teams that, by the way, always figures itself out normally towards the end of the year. Yeah. This is a really good coaching staff under Kyle Whittingham, obviously. So they're going to develop.
Yeah, but so are all the other teams in the league. Yeah, they could. They're very, very, very likely to rise to the top of the Big 12. They're probably going to win the Big 12 and make the playoff. Are you going to tell me that they're going to be a second-round team after that? I mean, maybe they get lucky and get to play one of the the group of 5 teams and advance, but I don't trust them against Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, and Oregon, any of those teams.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I feel the same way.
I do want to kind of revisit this though real quick. I know I'm backtracking, but I wanted to look at it. You kind of mentioned like Missouri's schedule didn't get any harder. I would argue that it has only gotten harder. Oklahoma's defense, I think, is good enough to give Missouri some challenges. That game is in Missouri, though. South Carolina, much better football team now than they were in the preseason. Mm-hmm. Arkansas, much better football team now than they were in the preseason. So while it still isn't these other SEC schedules that are having teams are having to go through, I would say that it has gotten harder in that perspective.
I feel like every SEC schedule feels like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean,
except for maybe Ole Miss's.
I would say Texas's. I would say doesn't feel harder.
Okay.
Most every SEC team has either lived up to the hype or has exceeded expectations, with the exception of Florida and Mississippi State, which we all kind of already said that these aren't going to be really good teams.
Yeah.
We got some questions about, hey, can y'all eliminate some of the trolls in the chat? There's
No.
problems with growth, baby.
Hell
Problems
no.
with
Keep
growth.
the trolls in the chat.
You know what I mean? Problems with growth. These are first world problems we'll be having on this channel that's just crossed over, I think, 28.3 thousand subscribers. So shout out to you guys. By the way, this time last year, we were at about 14. About 14,000 subscribers. Some say, this guy, that we're the fastest growing show on the internet. So how about that?
Oh.
How about that? I don't even know where we were at. Oh, buy, sell, hold. Are you buying, selling, or holding any stock that you might have right now of Travis Hunter winning the Heisman? Is the best bet odd right now on most sports books?
Sell it.
Selling, I am too.
Yeah,
Sell
I would
it.
sell it.
I wish they had abilities to short gambling like they do shorting stocks. Because I'd short the piss out this,
We would make
and I'd
so
make
much
a
money.
ton of money.
Look, Colorado is going to lose at least 4 games, at the very least. We went over it in the offseason. There hasn't been a Heisman winner that has 4 losses under his belt in years, like decades, like talking like Army in the 40s type losses. So it's not going to happen. Look, he might be one of the best players in college football. What he's doing on the field right now is unheard of, unseen. Probably won't be replicated for a long time. He will always be a special college football player, but he's on a team that's not going to allow him to win the Heisman. It's part of the reason why we're so high on Caleb Downs winning the Heisman in 2025, because he's going to have a similar role where he's doing multiple things on the field. But the only difference is he's going to be on a team that's competing for a national title.
Is there not a world where he's just so far and away the best player in college football that 6-5 is okay? Because this, if we've learned anything about as media progresses and as time goes on with this stuff, and we saw this with the freshman barrier getting broken. We saw this with the wide receiver barrier getting broken. We've seen some of these barriers of previous stipulations being broken, especially in years where there is no clear-cut number 2. Which, if that's what I'm presenting to you as right now, 4 weeks in, 5 weeks, going into week 5, is there a clear-cut 2? Because right now it looks to me like there's a clear-cut 1.
Not yet, but what's been the marquee matchup of this season
This is
so
fair.
far?
This
Like,
is
let
100%
Georgia
fair.
and Texas play, let Bama and Texas play, let Tennessee, and let all these guys have their big marquee matchups. Travis Hunter's falling down this rankings. Like, if God forbid if Arch Manning throws for 300 yards against Georgia for some odd reason, you're telling me he's not skyrocketing to the
odd
top?
reason would be Quinn Ewers got hurt again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, can we can kind of say that's a trend at this point?
Oh, yeah, I talked about
This
it.
is 3
We
years
said
in a
last
row.
year, sell his Heisman odds because he always gets hurt.
Yeah.
It's the 3rd year he's had an injury where he's had to miss extended time in a game.
Yeah, the only point I was going to make is if there ever were a player that could win the Heisman with
It's
a
him.
team that's 7-5, it is Travis Hunter.
Yeah, I mean,
because no matter what, and this has been the takeaway every single time that people have turned Colorado football games on, is hey, Colorado football team really bad. Travis Hunter, the best player in college football right now, the best singular player, and everybody credits him for the reasons why this team is finding ways to win football games. So if that continues, no matter if they're 7-5 or 8-4 or whatever, there's definitely a realm where he gets to. There's definitely a world where he gets to New York, and I think there's definitely still a world where he wins the Heisman.
yeah, I mean, like, you're right. If there was a guy that was going to do it, it's
Yeah.
him. I think he's benefiting from a lot of what we saw Colorado benefit from last year in the first 4 weeks of the season, where they're kind of the media darling. The rest of the regular season hasn't really gotten to the thick of things that are really important. Let the high marquee matchups, let the top 10 matchups start raining in, and people will very quickly forget about Colorado and Travis Hunter. To no offense of Travis Hunter, I think he's a phenomenal player, but It is what it is.
All right, so my next one, buy, sell, or hold Miami as a national title contender as of right now. I am saying no. I'm selling this right now for the time. Actually, I'm going to hold on this. I'm going to hold on this. Right now, my list of national title contenders are Texas, Georgia, Bama, Ohio State, Tennessee, and Ole Miss. Anybody outside of that right now, I have a hard time wrapping my head around it. But we're very close. We're very close to doing this with Miami. They're playing with, especially Cam Ward, playing with a different level of swag. Have you seen some of the clips? Mm-hmm. He's out here pointing where they're going. He's out here kind of doing one of these to guys as he's running out of bounds, drawing personal fouls.
Walking around in the pocket.
Walking around in the pocket, very, very lackadaisical, and playing with a tremendous amount of confidence. I'm close. I'm close to making this a title contender.
I'm watching Miami in the same way I watched Washington last year.
Ooh, good comp.
In that you watch them, it's like, this is going to fall apart at some point, right? Like, it's Washington. Like, it's too good to be true, right? And Washington just kept on going and made it all the way to the national title. I'm getting similar vibes from Miami this year in that regard. I just don't know if they have the stamina to make it through this. Like, we're a third of the way through, and they look really good. They haven't really played anyone yet. Yeah, Cam Ward has looked phenomenal, but there's a long way to go. You've got at least 10 more games if you want to be a national title winner in this conference, this division, this sport. So I want to buy it because I feel like it's probably the best value out there, but I just don't trust it.
What say you, J. Will?
Yeah, I'll hold on it right now. Not enough to go off of to go selling it, of course, and definitely. And I still don't feel like there's enough for me to start buying national titles stock for Miami. Just want to keep seeing it. I thought it was impressive that they went from kind of struggling with USF in the first half a little bit to then blowing them out of the water, winning that game, I think, by a final score of 51-10. So they turned it up a little bit. Turned it up a lot, actually. So Cam Ward has been impressive. We talk about how elite quarterback play is essential for you to win a national title in these days. He is exactly that. I think he is an elite quarterback. He has proven that time and time again throughout this college football season. So going to keep an eye on them. So I'm going to hold on it right now.
All right, buy, sell, or hold Michigan as a real Big Ten contender after this weekend's win over USC.
Oh, shit.
How many times can you win a football game passing for 50 or less yards?
I don't know, man. They've managed to do it more than anybody over the last
they have.
several years.
Sell it.
You're selling?
So the difference between last year's Michigan team and this year's Michigan team was that if you
forced about 10 NFL players.
That and if you forced them to throw the football, they could do it. They had to throw the football to beat Alabama, and they were able to do it just enough. There's no way in hell you're throwing the football against any of these other teams. You don't have the offense to do it. You are one really, really awful play on defense away from losing that game against USC.
It's fair.
If USC makes that tackle, they don't drive down the field. They don't score that touchdown. They don't win the game. So I'm selling it.
But how many times are they going to lose the turnover battle like they did in that football game? USC won the turnover battle by what, 2? Would have been 3?
No. I think they won it by 1.
Would have been 2?
Yes.
Okay. So not that much of a drastic difference. I do think they can do this to everybody but Ohio State and Oregon.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, they're 10-2. Just saying. Well, no, 10-3 or 9-3 because they lost to Texas already.
I don't like it.
I don't like it either. I'm just saying. And even at 9-3, they're still in contention for the Big Ten because the Texas loss isn't a Big Ten loss.
Let me say this. I trust your take that Nebraska is going to be the second
more
best
than
team.
This?
Than Michigan.
Man, you really hate an orgy, huh?
No comment.
All right. Saturday marks Kalen DeBoer's SEC debut, and this was something that was asked in our Discord chat. If you want to holler at that, patreon.com/Brooks Austin comes with a free Discord edition over there. Guys, does it matter? Does it matter that this is Kalen DeBoer's first SEC football game? I'm going to say yes and no. I'm going to take both stances here, all right? I'm going to say yes because nothing will prepare you for an SEC roster like playing an SEC roster. Lane Kiffin connoted this weekend, right? He said, or today, he said, look, man, like, let's be honest. I'm a realist. Our schedule has not prepared us for Kentucky. They haven't been prepared for Kentucky. I think Wisconsin, based off watching film over the last couple of days, really bad football team. This is by far and away a fact. This is the best football team that Alabama's faced all year, and I think that definitely matters. However, this football coach has beat better football teams with less talent several times. I don't think it's that much of a difference maker here. Hey, big first-time SEC game. Guys, he's beaten SEC teams before.
It's not even that. Here's why I think it's not as much of a difference maker. Kalen DeBoer doesn't have to play the game. The biggest difference that everyone always points to in the SEC is the speed and physicality of the sport. I mean, we saw it with Oklahoma last week where they seemed kind of taken aback by how hard and how fast Tennessee's defense was. Alabama's roster has been in the SEC with the exception of the handful of players he brought from Washington. It's not like Alabama's team is going to be surprised by the physicality and speed of this game. Kalen DeBoer might be in some aspects. He might be surprised by the hostility of the crowd and how amped up everyone's going to be, but that ultimately won't change things as much as it will for Jalen Milroe has played in SEC his whole entire life. There's numerous guys that are at this point used to SEC football. If Kalen DeBoer was bringing Washington to the SEC, I would say, yes, this matters. A lot of those guys aren't going to be ready for it. But since his team as a whole, for the most part, is used to it, it doesn't matter that much.
Yeah, I would agree with all of that. The only difference that I could maybe think of is I think there is something to be said about going into a football game and knowing exactly what it means. Like knowing the magnitude and being there and present in those type of football games. Like knowing what Georgia versus Alabama feels like in that setting. I mean, obviously Nick Saban knew what that meant. Kirby Smart knows what that meant. And it still means that. Even though it's not Nick Saban on the other sideline, it still is a classic, and everybody's setting up as this way, is it's a classic Georgia versus Alabama matchup, two really good football teams, and everybody thinks it's going to be a close game. So that's the only difference I can think of is it's Kalen DeBoer's introduction to not SEC football, but introduction to like big-time rivalry SEC football games.
I think the bigger question of this is Kalen DeBoer ready for the chess match he's going to be in with Kirby Smart?
Oh, yeah.
We say yeah, but I mean, who are the best coaches Kalen DeBoer's gone against?
He's faced Sark. He's faced Harbaugh and lost. Lanning twice, 3 times. Riley would be in this mix to an extent.
Yeah.
But that's kind of the list.
And I don't think any of them are on defensive mastermind par as much as Kirby Smart is.
Yeah.
Best one in there is probably Harbaugh, and they won that game. So that's where I was saying he's going to have more an effect on this game than, it's the first SEC match. Kalen DeBoer wasn't ready for it.
Absolutely. We're ready to transition to the local hour?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. We got a whole nother hour coming up right now. Welcome into Talk the Dog, the show where we find a bone to pick and a take to give. These are not hot takes. These is dog takes. Can I talk that dog? What's up? You like that? You really like that? Let's shut up and grab some tape. What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back into the Film Guy Network for a fabulous another hour of content. Massive football game this weekend. Everybody knows Georgia on the road, Tuscaloosa to face the number 4 ranked Crimson Tide. I got a great local hour for you guys tonight. Kirby spoke to the media today. I got presser notes for you. We have a positional battle preview. A little, I don't know if it's been going around the Bama space, but it's certainly been going around the Georgia space, a little positional preview from the SEC network. I think everybody does positional previews incorrectly. We're going to do them the right way tonight on this network, so stick around for that. What makes Jalen Milroe so hard to prepare for? We'll talk about that tonight as well. Got Kirby Smart's comments on that today. Top 3 biggest moments in this historic rivalry and battle. Also saw something on the internet that this rivalry needs a name. This rivalry needs a nickname. So I challenged the chat here in the local hour. Give me the best name you can possibly attach to the Georgia-Alabama rivalry, Alabama-Georgia rivalry, however you pronounce it, if you are a Bama fan in the chat tonight. We appreciate you guys for being here. Preview with prediction, obviously coming tonight as well in this football game. But first and foremost, I want to give a quick shout-out to our friends over at BetUS. If you're looking for a new book this season, guys, there's one place to be. It's on BetUS. BetUS now offers a 150% sign-up bonus on your first deposit and 125% on your next 2 deposits up to $2,000 using code YouTube150. Again, code YouTube150 over there on BetUS for that sign-up, deposit, and deposit match over there with those guys. A tremendous opportunity to be supported by our friends over at BetUS. I ask that you deploy your support with those guys over there at BetUS as well. All right, guys, I did a film study on Alabama's defense. I have now completed a film study on Alabama's offense. Those 2 film studies have gone north of, I think, a total of 30,000 views. They've brought in a brand new 250 subscribers to this channel as well.
Hell yeah.
It's been well received. It's been well accepted, and we appreciate you guys for doing that. If you're a Bama fan that has found us, we appreciate you for giving us the opportunity to be your home for college football talk and analysis. Let's get into it. I got some notes here for you. I'm going to go position by position and give you kind of the rundown of what my analysis from the film has been. Start with the quarterback position on the offensive side of the ball for Alabama. As much as Kirby Smart alluded to this week about the development as a passer from Milroe, I do want to throw some water on that. I think there are still some obvious signs of not an inability, but a lack of an elite ability to process and see the field. I don't think this is the best seer of the field from a passing standpoint. Also, the pocket awareness isn't exactly what I would deem elite. All right, and the pocket management isn't exactly what I would deem elite. The development, in my opinion, the development at the quarterback position at Alabama over the last 3 football games has been a lot more to do with the offensive coordinator, play caller, game designer than it has been really the quarterback in and of himself. I still see some areas of concern with regards to processing the field. One thing I will tell you, okay, about how they're using Jalen Milroe is this right here. A whole lot more automatic design runs for the quarterback. I've seen Y lead option, which is a read option with the Y leaking out and being a lead blocker. I've seen quarterback power read, where we're pulling the backside guard and inserting him into the front side gap. I've seen quarterback truck, which is no different than a toss sweep, but instead we're doing the quarterback and having a lead blocker out there. I've seen quarterback lead ISO, and of course, I've seen quarterback draw. The amount of times last year that Jalen Milroe ran is minuscule to me, or it's not minuscule, it's beside the point to me, because a lot of those were scrambles, him pulling the ball down, taking off. A lot of those are very complex reads, whether they be triple options or what we around here call the triple arrow. It makes it a whole lot more difficult on the quarterback, whereas I just gave you 6 guaranteed, number 4 is keeping the ball, no thought process, just run types of runs that they ran against Wisconsin in just the first half alone of that football game. His legs, particularly in the green zone, once we get past the 40-yard line and we're already pretty much guaranteed points barring a missed field goal or a turnover, in that area of the field, they really deploy these quarterback runs because they're safe, they're efficient, they gain yardage, they add hats to the box for this run game. Let's talk about the running back room, guys. I love this room. I love this room in Jam Miller and Justice Haynes. I think they're 2 pros. I think they approach the game like pros. I don't think there's an area of weakness in really either one of their games. I do question the electricity in the room. I don't think there's a 4.38 runner in this bunch. I think they're both just really, really good high-end backs, and I don't believe there's a drop-off with either, though I do think Jam Miller probably a little bit better of a pass protector from what I've seen on tape. Speaking of pass protection and blocking, takes us to the tight end room. 45 and 81 block their asses off, and that's what they're here to do. All right, they have 4 combined catches among them. Number 45 has 1. Number 81 has 3. They are not here to catch the football. That's not what they're there to do. They are there to block, and they do so really, really well. If 45's attached to you, understand something. Through the echo of the whistle, you're going to have to fight that guy. It's like Chaz Chambliss playing H-back. Let's just call it what it is. That's what's going on right there. They're not there to catch the ball. They know their role. They play it really, really, really well at the tight end position. Wide receivers, did you guys know Ryan Williams, 17 years old?
I think I'm getting a little tired of this joke.
Ryan Williams, 17 years old. Don't know if you knew it, but he definitely is. I also saw this. Did you know Ryan Williams born in the year 2007?
That's disgusting. God damn.
That was on a graphic today. There's a new spin
on
Ryan Williams Young.
I was conscious in 2007.
Yeah.
I had aspirations.
I was almost drinking beer in 2007. Way too early. But anyways, Ryan Williams is the truth. I'm going to tell you that. Y'all know this. He's really, really good. I think number 1, Kendrick Law, is what I would classify as a demon. He's a demon. He's mean. Bring your hat when number 1's around. 5, 6, and 3, I would deem good. I think they're good football players. I think 2 is great, so we all know that. Offensive line room. I would go back to the wide receiver room. I would say they're better than they were last year, but they're not quite what we remember the Bama standard to be. I think they're going to eventually get back to that with DeBoer's offense and the way he's going to recruit the offensive side of the football. On to the offensive line. Tyler Booker is a menace. I think 72 is really good. The center, I think 77, the right guard, is very much so a leaner. I've seen this for multiple years on tape now. You can snatch this guy down on his face. I think the tackles are relatively gettable. And Alabama fans got on me on the film study about, hey, man, left tackle not healthy against Wisconsin. I believe that was a shoulder injury that Caden Proctor was dealing with, and I don't know that to be true. My question about Caden Proctor is the anchor. So unless he had a lower body injury, unless he had an ankle injury, unless he had a knee injury, whatever it was, and if that's the case, then okay, we'll probably throw that tape away. But the tape is what the tape is. And for the last 2 years, Caden Proctor has either been gettable through a speed rush as a true freshman or through early on through this season, gettable through a bull rush and power. I question the anchor through one game on tape. And again, I know still recovering from whatever the injury was. We'll see how it looks on Saturday. I do think their tackles, if anywhere on that offensive line, I think the tackles are the ones that I would be attacking if I'm Jalen Walker, Mykel Williams, and the rest of the bunch. Guys, they're not afraid to repeat concepts on the offensive side of the football. If something is working, they're going to do it. So this whole idea of halftime adjustment, no. You got to make in-game adjustments. If there is a problem that is being created or being forced by Kalen DeBoer and this offensive staff, you got to fix it right now in between possessions, hell, maybe even in between snaps, because they're probably going to come right back to it. They're going to get back into that same type of attack. They're going to get right back into that same type of successful opportunity that they have presented themselves. Still think your best bet against this quarterback is to push the pocket. I want him in there. I don't want him anywhere else. I want him right in the pocket. I want him having to see over offensive linemen. I want him to have to throw into windows and out of windows. I want him to have to throw with anticipation. I don't want the picture clean. I want this guy inside the pocket all day long. That's every scrambler, but really this scrambler. If he gets north, bad problems there. If I want him sacked, I want him sacked with the tackle, guys. I want an offensive tackle pushed into his back. I want him falling down. I don't want anybody breaking contain or thinking that they've got to win upfield, because then we open grass and it's trouble. It's absolutely trouble. Most importantly, on top of you're going to hear a lot about containing the quarterback this week. You're going to hear a lot about getting Milroe on the ground. You're going to hear a lot about limiting the explosives. But I think the most important thing, and the thing that Wisconsin really failed to do, it wasn't eliminate the explosives, because I don't think you're going to completely do that. When you force checkdowns, you have to tackle the ball. You have to tackle the ball, because you've gotten them to do what you want them to do, which is to not throw the ball deep. So when that happens, we cannot allow broken tackles. We cannot allow balls that were thrown behind the line of scrimmage to end up in 8, 9, 10-yard gains. That will kill you, all right? Because when they concede, you have to win. And when they check the ball down, that's them conceding. There's the film notes, boys.
Yeah.
I got defensive film notes that we're going to hit too. I'm going to do the same thing, even though I didn't write them down. I'll do the same thing in terms of groups. All right? We're going to go through defensive line, linebackers, all that good stuff.
Sick. But no, one of the most important things I think you pointed out, and on that film study, was you have to tackle him. Tackle whoever has the ball. And it's such a simple concept, and it's so basic, and I feel lazy saying it, but when the first guy gets there, you have to make that tackle.
Yeah.
When they can get 2 and 3 extra yards on offense and extend drives and turn, 3rd and 6, check down pass into hey, we just got an 8-yard completion because Ryan Williams made the first guy miss, you are going to have a long day on offense.
Yeah, and I think that, in last year in the SEC championship game, it wasn't an issue of Georgia not getting there to Milroe and not getting in a position to make a tackle. It's that they weren't making the first tackle. Like, they would get there, somebody would be up on him, and then Milroe would escape, but then you'd have a busted play of he's either running down the sidelines for a first down, or he's hitting one of these chunk plays. And that's where their offense is the most dangerous. So if you do get to him enough to where you can get him down, you have to get him down on the ground. But that goes for everybody in this offense. Little
Birdie tells me we had a film study today. A lot of people watched it. Little Birdie tells me we also have some additional production to this.
We do.
We
do
have.
Is this a Diddy counter?
We have yet another Diddy counter.
Well, let's play it. Let's see how she rolls. Let's shut up and let's grind. And that's what makes this so damn hard Or maybe hitting that tight end is obvious by the asses. Provide the hand backside. Those deep balls, man, I think you're trying to take my head off. This guy's still growing a tremendous amount. I'd rather snot on the mic than keep sniffing you guys. When the tight end is naked on his own side, I hear getting sniffed.
Yeah, that's a crazy one.
That
wasn't even like you could misunderstand that. That was just a what?
That's on me.
It's all right. It was honestly kind of a slow week for the Diddy.
Yeah, what'd we end up? 10?
10. Records
10.
14.
Still double digits, but cleaning up a
And that
little
was
bit.
on one film study.
One film study.
53 minutes?
Yeah, like an
Yeah.
hour-long film study. That's
Yeah.
pretty much impressive. Because I remember the first one we did was a 27-minute film study, and it had 10. So you're averaging a Diddy per every 2 minutes. So now you've cut it down exponentially.
I feel so bad for the people that have our audio turned all the way up and they get hit with that. That's my bad. It's obvious by the asses. It is.
That's
It's obvious by the asses. All you got to do, check ass and ankles. That's all you got to do. When it comes to the line of scrimmage, I'm an ass and ankles guy. Actually plays out with my women, too.
Ankles matter that much?
Yeah, I can't have fat ankles. I can't do cankles.
Cankles?
I can't do cankles.
That's definitely like a
Cankles and bad laughs, I can't do. You won't catch me with a woman with cankles or a bad laugh. You just can't do
Well,
it.
I'd hope not. You have a wife.
Well, yeah. But even before then, the track record's strong, you know?
Fair enough.
Good to know.
Good to know. All right, let's do this defensive side of the football, off rip and off cuff. Talked about the defensive line yesterday a little bit in terms of their body types. That's where the Diddyism came from. Tim Keenan, fire hydrant. The rest of the defensive tackles are a little bit bigger, a little bit longer, a little bit more of a problem from an athleticism standpoint, whereas Keenan, bull rush all day. Watch out. And being able to move him off the football is really, really hard as well. Okay, so in the run game, he's going to clog things on early downs. You got to be able to uproot that guy. Defensive tackles are really, really veteran. And then they have this bunch, these two young guys, 23 and I think 20, that come in. 23, I want to say, is James Smith, was a really, really highly rated recruit and defensive tackle last year. As a sophomore now, they use those guys as their pass rush defensive tackles. When they get in there, expect them to get upfield, expect them to get after the quarterback. In terms of the edge rushers, we talked about Quay Rousseau being down. The rest of the guys are really, really good as well. 19, 22 is LT Overton. I believe 28 rotates in as well. All those guys are 6'5". All those guys are 230 plus. All those guys 240 plus. All those guys can really run, except for maybe Overton. Overton's probably playing at about 280 right now. He's pretty thick. But a really good bunch and a really deep bunch. However, I do think Rousseau is the most important football player in that bunch, and he's not going to be available in this football game from what I've been told. And it's scary that a true freshman goes in there and becomes the most vital portion of their defense. It's only scary because of what it's ultimately going to become. I think Kane Womack has done a tremendous job early on in the season using that football player and to the best of his skill sets. On to the linebacker core. I've talked about this group ad nauseum. I think y'all understand my take on this group. Justin Jefferson hasn't played as well and as much after that targeting penalty against USF. But apart from that, you know, with Jahad Campbell and Deontay Lawson, they're as good as it gets from an inside linebacker standpoint. The depth is a little bit of a concern. Okay, a little bit of a concern. But these guys don't rotate as much as, like, say, a Georgia would. They don't play as many football players. They kind of stick with their guns because the depth is a overarching concern for this defense at Alabama right about now. Let's go on to the defensive backfield. I think the corners are gettable. I like Damani Jackson, I really do, but I think if you're going to attack anywhere, maybe we attack there. Now, I did hear from a source today that was attached to that Alabama program last year that told me there is a question, at least there was last year within the building, and continued into this year, about the overall speed at the safety and the nickel position. So we're talking about Devontae Smith, we're talking about Malachi Moore, and now we're talking about Keon Saab. Last year, or Saab. Last year, we would have been talking about Caleb Downs, which speed isn't the best trait of Caleb Downs, but it's never a minus. All right, so it wasn't something that they're talking about there. However, I was tipped off. All right, Malachi Moore, super instinctual football player. All right, NIL certainly played a role as to why this guy was going to come back to the college football ranks. However, overall speed was going to impact this dude's draft status from what I'm told, and that was part of the reasons why he chose to take the NIL money and come back last year or this year as opposed to maybe taking a third, fourth, fifth round draft selection and draft grade. Super great football player, super instinctual, top end speed is a little bit suspect. As the chat says, big and smart. He is big, he is smart. And I would say he's put on about 5 or 10 pounds since moving to safety from playing nickel last year.
That's good.
So where would you try and attack this Alabama defense? And would it be trying to get matchups that are favorable, like attacking in the slot? Is that kind of where you would go at this?
I think you can run the football Saturday to an extent. I saw Wisconsin be able to run the football towards the end of this game. I think a variety of run game and a variety of attack will ultimately be the success story here. Being able to get to B-gap and beyond, right? Running counters, running a little bit of jet sweeps, which is something they didn't run at all against Kentucky, which was a little bit not questionable, just like, hey, where's it at? Why wasn't it in the game plan? Maybe they were saving it for this week. But, yeah, I think if I were to attack this defense in the passing game, I would attack vertically on Malachi Moore in the slot, all right? So I'm talking about maybe Dominic Lovett, maybe Arian Smith in the slot. Certainly Anthony Evans in the slot can do something like this. I'm attacking vertically there. If I'm trying to get immediate separation, I think that's found at the corner spot right about now against Alabama. Even Wisconsin receivers were able to create some type of space, all right? They just had nobody to complete the passes. And to be honest with you, I don't believe in the wide receiver corps at all at Wisconsin. I thought they had one really good talent outside of that. Very, very bad execution and just installment of that offense, in my opinion. It's not a Wisconsin show. Wisconsin doesn't need to be a spread football team. They can't run it well enough. When's Wisconsin ever recruited elite weapons? When? Why are we running an offense based off weapons? It made no sense to me.
So based on everything you're saying, do you like Georgia's ability to kind of attack this defense and expose some weaknesses in it?
I mean, I don't know if they're apart from, like I said, like individual weaknesses. I think there are some of those. I don't think there's an overarching, Bama's defense can't do this.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? We
Right.
need to attack this. I will say this. I don't know of any football team that's going to play as much cover one this year as Bama's going to against Georgia. Georgia's weaponry at wide receiver isn't filled with first-round draft picks, but it's still filled with enough guys you don't feel good enough leaving on an island all day long. You know what I mean? So I do think that's some opportunity for Georgia to get loose.
So I'm hearing this is going to be the defense that you thought you were going to get when you played Clemson.
Yeah.
Until Clemson came out and said,
yeah, less pressures though. I don't think this team blitzes as much as a Clemson team would in old schools. They run a lot of cover one hook or cover one hole, right? Where they'll drop a safety into the hole. Malachi Moore's eyes on the quarterback, hanging out in the middle of the field. They'll put one safety deep, normally sob. If they run too high, they'll run too high. But if they're running too high on tape against Wisconsin, it was the zone. They were running Tampa too. Anytime they were in man coverage, like I said, they had that hole defender, and they were splitting the look. So,
did they ever run any robber, do you think?
What do you mean?
Like if they're going cover one, do they have a robber? Is he also
That's
in
what
man?
I'm talking about.
So they're going
the hook, the hole. They're going to drop a safety in the hole. Yeah, you call it robber, I
Yeah.
call it hole.
Okay.
He's going to play in the hole. We'll fire a little bit of corner blitz every once in a while. That's always going to come from the boundary. That's not anything new in the SEC. We've seen that over and over again from defenses. So, good little rundown of Alabama. People asking if this is a Alabama local hour. No, you just happened to play them this week. Just kind of preparing you for the opponent. You know, that kind of thing.
I mean, people were mad about that. I was surprised.
I don't know if people – they say they're ready for growth. I don't know. I don't know if everyone is. I don't know if everyone's on board with this show, still giving you more local hour content, more Georgia football-related content than anybody else in the space, while also trying to do this national thing because we think we do it pretty well.
Yeah, it's definitely funny that a lot of people are like, Brooks, this show needs to be bigger. This is a great show. It needs to be. You need to be hired by.
Don't you dare try though.
You need to be hired by a network, and then as soon as a couple Bama fans get in, it's like the chat's ruined now. We get these Bama fans out of here. So it's funny.
All right, Kirby Smart had a press conference today. Let's talk through it. This is something man, I'm so mad I didn't get to last night during the show because I knew I was going to ask him about it today. Last night on the show sheet, it said the most difficult thing about preparing for Jalen Milroe. And I was going to come in here and I was going to wax poetically about how, hey, there's never been one like this. They're like, even your head coach has talked about this. There has not been a quarterback that plays the game like this guy does, at the explosive rates that he does, at the unpredictability that he does. There is nobody like him. There's nobody that really plays it like him. There's nobody that even looks like him or goes about playing the quarterback position like him. So my thought process was, that's got to be a bitch to prepare for. Because during the week, I know in my history as a football player, all we're doing during the week as a scout team is trying to give you a simulation or a look, right? Trying to give you a look of what you're going to see on Saturday. So how do you give a look of a quarterback that there ain't one of? There's not a second version of this guy anywhere in college football. So my question to Kirby Smart today was, Coach, you talked about all week, ain't really anybody like this. You've never seen anybody like this. You've never prepared for anybody like this. So how are you going about this week preparing a look for this football player? And his answer was simple. I'm not. I can't. If there was anybody that was able to give this guy a look, he would have been in the transfer portal. He'd be starting for somebody right now in college football, because if there was a second version of this, if there was somebody that could simulate this, he'd be playing for somebody right now. And I completely agree. So my thought process on this, before we get into the Kirby Smart notes, is how would I go about preparing my football team for this? Because Gunnar Stockton, though very similar throwing, like not mechanics, but how the ball comes out, everything's really, really hard. We struggle layering the football, right? We can throw it a country mile. We throw the deep ball really, really well. From a throwing perspective, I think Gunnar Stockton could kind of simulate this, but Lord knows he doesn't have the twitch and the athleticism and the dynamicism. I don't know why I continue to try to say that word, knowing that I can't.
That's your word of the season.
I know, dynamicism, because I'm talking about Jalen Milroe a lot. I don't know if there's certainly not a quarterback that can provide that. So here's what I would do, boys. I would put Gunnar Stockton at like 6 yards with a ball in his hand. Mm-hmm. And I would say, Zacoby White, come on down, buddy. You're going to play scout team quarterback today, and all you're going to do is simulate the rushing that this quarterback can provide, the suddenness, the electricity that this guy can provide with pulling the ball down. All the while, Gunnar Stockton standing back there the whole entire time being able to throw the football. That's how I would try to prepare for this. Now, I don't know how it would look. I think it would be a real ugly picture during practice, but I think it might give us the best look of, hey, linebackers still got to drop, getting into our zones. Oh, crap, quarterback took off. Let's go attack him. Oh, by the way, quarterback took off doesn't mean that we can leave our assignments, because quarterback might be taking off to extend the play. DB still got to cover. That's kind of how I would attack it.
I mean, that's really the only way you can attack it, because you have to recreate the athleticism on the ground of him running, but also the ability he can throw it. It's all what we've talked about. It makes him so hard to cover and so hard to scout for. So I do like that idea. We did something similar to that in high school when we played Justin Fields, actually, where it was you had the starting quarterback sits back like 5 or 6 yards, and it's you read on the cue cards, okay, this is going to be a design throw play, this is going to be a design run, design scramble. So I'd have to imagine George is doing something similar to that, but again, how accurate of a representation is that?
This had to be how teams felt about preparing for Cam Newton. Not that they're the same football player, but that nobody in this world has the ability to replicate what Cam Newton is able to do at practice. And in that sense of, we just got to try and figure it out. It's not like we can just continue to replicate similar reps in practice that we're going to see in the game.
B. Schaefer asks, what's the best comp for Jalen Milroe, and then provides the comparison of RG3. No, RG3, if he got hit like Jalen Milroe does consistently, he would have been out in college. This dude is big. This dude's listed at like 215, but he's got the muscle mass of a dude that's 230. Something that Kirby talked about today. Mm-hmm. You don't realize how big this guy is until you get up on him. Pause.
You also had another super sub.
Let's get to the first super sub right. Oh, no, we're going to talk about that in a second. What does Alabama need to do in order to beat Georgia? I hit the keys to the victory for Alabama yesterday, so let's run back to this and go ahead and give you this. One, limit turnovers. I think when he's got 9 interceptions on his career. 3 of those came in a year where he wasn't a starter. That's all mop-up duty interceptions. 6 of them came last year. Hasn't thrown an interception in 7 football games. has Jalen Milroe.
Pretty good.
Hasn't turned the ball over apart from the one fumble against USF. So that's number one. Number two, dictate on defense. I talked about this last night. I feel like you have to attack Carson Beck. If you're not going to attack him, we have to be able to disguise everything in the back end. You can't just line up and play football against a processor like this unless you're getting tremendous amounts of pressure, which against this offensive line, nobody really has been able to do for the last 17 starts with Carson Beck at quarterback. Number three, protection got to be clean for the shots. That's what I talked about last night, and the analysis holds true because I talked about his pocket awareness, Milroe's pocket awareness. If a guy gets beat clean, Milroe's pulling the ball down and taking off, and that's fine. It might be a 15, 20-yard, 40-yard, 60-yard play, but history shows us that if this guy gets clean pockets when they're designing shots, they're 70-yard touchdowns. So, like, if you give him a clean pocket, I think that's the key to having him be successful driving the ball down the field. We'll get to that super chat, okay, in a little bit. That was regards to the matchups on the line of scrimmage. Let's continue with this press conference notes. Talked about motivation not being an issue this week, as you would expect, right? Boys are getting up for this one. They didn't even need the additional motivation from finding out that Jalen Milroe was out here talking that smack after that win last year, saying that they was a little soft in the fourth quarter.
He said that, like, in the summer, though. This is
Yeah.
old news. I don't know why that's getting resurfaced.
Well, it's getting resurfaced now because they're playing now.
Well, it's like getting treated as like breaking news. Though. Like we knew he said that, and again, like this is one of those games where if you need motivation for it, you're not ready.
But this is only the real opportunity where you get to ask him about it, and it's not irrelevant to what's happening.
Absolutely. Talked about the weather. Doesn't think it's going to be an issue. Said that storm's actually blowing east. It's supposed to landfall on Thursday, so I think they're going to be okay there. Was asked about Jared Wilson. Said he's done a great job this season. Super intelligent and has done a really good job of him and Carson being on the same page. Do you remember the quote we got from Cedric about this last year?
One set of something like, what was it?
Four eyes, one thought. Four eyes, one thought. It's the best center analogy I've ever been given. It made me go, in the middle of that press conference. Thank you, Cedric, for that one. Four eyes, one thought. That's what they got going on right now, and that's what you need. You need that on the road. By the way, the speakers were cranked to a maximum this afternoon in the indoor stadium, so they're getting prepared for the crowd noise. Was asked about Carson and specifically the areas that Carson has made improvements in this year. Said he's done a better job with his legs. I think we can all agree with that. Said he would like to see or would like some throws back and believes that he's in a really good headspace and that he, quote, believes in Carson. So that's good. Got a lot of belief, tremendous amount of belief in Carson going into this football game. Was asked about the wide receiver room and just specifically asked about the losses of Brock Bowers and Ladd McConkey and feels like if they're deeper this year or what, kind of his thoughts on the wide receiver room. I believe his quote was, first and second rounders aren't in that room anymore. IDK if we're deeper, though, is what he said. I don't know if we're deeper, though, because the guys that we have on the roster this year, apart from Colby and Michael Jackson and London Humphreys, the guys really playing this year, they were on this roster last year. So it's not like they've added a tremendous amount of depth, though he did say they've added some additions, and it's a very different group is how he classified that. Was asked about defense limiting explosives, and I thought the quote on this one was exactly how I feel. Every play is a ticking time bomb. That's what he said about Alabama. Every play is a ticking time bomb. And he said that the most explosive plays in the NFL over the last several years have been quarterback scrambles, quarterback extending plays, throwing the ball down the field. I also love how Kirby doesn't just apply metrics and game trends of the SEC. He takes it from the NFL as well and applies it down to his conference. I think that's relatively important. I don't know if other coaches do that. I don't know if other coaches look at the NFL and see if they can apply that to the college game. I think a lot of that is actually in the inverse. I see a lot of NFL coordinators stealing from the college game quite often. Where else? Said that when two teams clash like this, when one's really good at eliminating explosives and one's really good at making explosives, that there's going to be give and take, which is exactly going to lead into some of my analysis later tonight. I think you just expect explosives to happen. You just can't let them kill you when they do. I think that's what he was alluding to there. Was asked about DeBoer when he started following him and said when he had encounters with Dan. I didn't realize he was following Dan's career as closely as he alluded to today. He kind of acts like he don't watch other football. He just watches film. That was a little bit Fugazi, we found out today. So, interesting there.
Here's a good question.
What's up?
Who do you think has had more conversations this week? Kalen DeBoer and Nick Saban, or Kirby Smart and Dan Lanning?
He was asked about if he's called Dan for any advice, and he said Dan hasn't had much success against this guy. So I would imagine he's calling. I would imagine he's asking Dan, what worked, what didn't against this offense. But the offense is totally different, in my opinion. What Alabama's doing this year looks nothing like what Washington was doing.
For sure.
From an offensive standpoint. Was asked about the tight ends. He did say we haven't asked them to do a lot. Thought that was interesting. We haven't asked our tight end room to do a lot. As we do, we're going to need them to show up more and more. We'll get to that super chat.
Again, bro. Again. Once is an accident. Twice you're – what are you trying to say right now?
Can't fool me again. Can't fool me again. Was asked about Malachi and Dan's experience and if it helps out a lot. And he kind of – it does, but it doesn't. Did one of those on that question. All right. Any thoughts, comments, questions, concerns about Kirby Smart's press conference? Did say that Michael was back at practice today in a limited capacity. Said that Warren Brinson has been practicing. I don't know about Jordan Hall, I think was the direct quote there. So we'll find out a little bit more about that tomorrow night as the SEC releases their injury report for SEC matchups. All right. 910 Cooper via a super chat says, was thinking about how the media has started to doubt Beck and was wondering if you think he may respond well to that kind of doubt, a la Stetson. Stetson had a massive chip on his shoulder no matter what. I don't think this guy – I think the idea of being a flatline football player doesn't change when people are doubting you. When people believe you or when people believe in you or people doubt you, you don't do this up and down thing because your whole thing is being flatline. This dude is a flatline individual. I don't know if he pays attention to these other things. However, if you do read these clippings, there's no way that you have tremendous amounts of confidence about yourself if you're into this stuff. But I don't vision him being one of these guys. Again, they have told over and over again the analysis about this individual from a human perspective. He is a flat-lined individual, no ups, no downs.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of the contrast between him and Stetson. Stetson kind of fed off that negativity, it seemed, and it just doesn't seem to do anything to Carson Beck at all, whether it's positive or negative. Carson Beck will always be Carson Beck no matter what people are saying about him. So I don't think it's going to feed into that much. That's a fun storyline where, he's coming into the game. Everyone's kind of low on him. He's coming off probably his worst performance ever. People are saying, he might not be the answer. I don't think it has that much to do with this game.
Yeah, and I don't think Carson needs to read it from the media about how he maybe had a bad game against Kentucky because
he knows.
He knows. He knows he had a bad game against Kentucky. So what does he need to go read it from some media reporter that, hey, Carson Beck didn't look his best against Kentucky? He's already aware of that. So if you're searching for more of it on social media, then that's probably a bad thing. And, yeah, I don't think he's doing that because I don't think he cares.
All right, on to the top 3 moments of this series. I'm going to sit this one out. Not exactly the Georgia historian that these two gentlemen are. So I'm going to sit here and go, wow, that was a cool moment. So let's do it. Who gives me their top 3 first? Let's get after it.
I'll go first. Do you want to go 1-1, Jay Will? Just back and forth?
Sure, we can do it that way.
All right, so the first –
I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I was honestly waiting.
Boy, you thought – no, just kidding. I really don't have
with
one.
another super chat.
Go ahead.
First off is Matt Stafford's overtime touchdown. This was actually one of the first Georgia games I remember watching as a kid consciously.
Oh, age yourself right quick.
I'm not that old. Dude.
No, I was doing the opposite of that.
Well, I'm not that
People
young
are going to be
either.
like, screw you. This guy doesn't know anything. Go ahead.
Whoa.
Well, wisdom comes with age, that kind of thing. If you lack the age, you lack the wisdom. I was just doing that. I wasn't calling you stupid.
I get it. But no, that 2007, it was probably it's one of the only few times you've won in this series, so it's one of the biggest moments.
I think everybody should know going into these lists, the pick 6 from Keely Ringo was not allowed.
Yeah.
Yes. All right.
Because,
that's Keely Ringo not allowed.
That's clearly the number one answer. I should have said that coming up because we all know that is the biggest moment in the series for Georgia.
Yeah, and because that moment was not allowed, I wanted to go with, I think, an underrated moment in the football game, specifically talking about the national title game versus Alabama. I think James Cook's 67-yard run that ended up giving Georgia its first lead in the football game because that was a drive where they also got their first touchdown. Georgia also took the lead at that point. I think that was a massive momentum swing in Georgia's favor because from the outside of a big play from George Pickens, it really wasn't moving the ball offensively up until that point in the football game. James Cook breaks one, and at that point, the offense it felt like it kind of got its swag back. They got some more confidence built into them, and I think that's kind of where the game shifted into Georgia's favor.
All right, my next moment, it's in a losing effort, but it's probably one of my favorite plays of any Georgia-Alabama game. The Alec Ogletree blocked field goal in the 2012 SEC Championship.
He returned that, right?
He returned it for a touchdown. That was one of the most – if Georgia wins that game, it's the most iconic play in Georgia football history, I think.
Yeah.
So
that's a good callback.
Boy, I had a bad take about the Ogletree brothers. A bad take.
Let's hear it.
Probably worst take I've ever had. You ready?
Oh.
This was before I was paid to give takes, so I don't think they were crafted yet. But I was still trying to give football opinions back in the day before anybody would listen to me. But I went and watched Noonan High School, where the Ogletree brothers played. I went and watched Noonan High School play a semifinal state playoff game against Northside Warner Robins. Okay, and Xander Ogletree, who went on to Georgia to be a backup fullback and never really turned into anything. Xander Ogletree had the best high school football game I've ever seen that night. I mean, he was running through souls on kickoffs. What got me? There was a defensive tackle that was committed to LSU, and he was playing an up back position right before the kickoff for Turner for some reason. Xander ran through his soul like he didn't weigh anything. And I saw that, and I was like, you know what? Xander Ogletree going to be better football player than Alec Ogletree. Terrible take.
Did not
Terrible
age well.
take.
Terrible.
I've since crafted them. We've gotten better. I think I was just too quick to it.
Yeah.
Reaction. Yeah, you were
Just
very
I wanted to get
reaction-based.
to it. This was before Skip Bayless made hot takes cool. So this would have been all right back in the day. It didn't turn out okay.
One of my moments,
We're still doing that.
yes, we're still going.
Dang, bro.
One of
Do
these
you want to stop?
No, I'm just kidding.
This moment did not happen in any of the football games, but it happened leading into one of the football games. Kirby Smart staying 10 toes down with Stetson Bennett after the SEC championship game. That led to the national title game. That led to, I mean, you don't win that football game without Stetson Bennett at quarterback. The two big plays that he made down the fourth quarter, the fourth quarter performance that he had. You don't get that first national title without Stetson Bennett, so I think that's one of the biggest moments in this series.
That perfectly switches into my third one. The Stetson Bennett fumble is the birth of Stetson Bennett, of Stet Quavius, I think. After that, he hit a switch where it was, you know what? He even said it kind of to Holly Rowe after the game. He's like, I wasn't going to be the reason we lost this game. He kind of hit the F it, and I'm just going to start playing football. Played his best quarter ever, won you your first natty, iconic. So that's the biggest moment.
You ready for full heel turn?
Let's hear it.
Full heel turn. Here we go. Top 3 moments in this rivalry.
Oh,
Number
shit.
3.
He's really doing it.
Aaron Murray getting blindside blocked in that pick 6. Pretty cool.
Boo.
Pretty cool gift. Number 2.
He's actually doing it. Holy
Time
shit.
running out. You know what I mean? Didn't spike the football. We out here having a little mishap right before we probably should have beat the shit out of Notre Dame. Number 1, 2nd and 26.
I'm going to hit the mute button.
I
Put the
can't
camera
belie-
back
I
over here.
can't believe you just did that.
Why?
That was crazy.
Why?
After what you were saying pre-show, I can't believe you just went full heel turn there. That's incredible. You know what? Respect.
You know what? I've decided.
Chat's got to be lighting him up.
I've decided. Look, I'm not going to be the guy that everything that comes out of my mouth you're going to love. I'm just not going to be that guy. I've tried to curtail my takes to make everybody love me. It's just not going to happen. It's just not going to happen for me. So if we're going to climb to the top, it's going to be because I say what I mean. And I mean what I say. You know what I mean?
I mean,
that's just what it's going to be.
I guess so, but intentionally making a list about the other team.
I mean, I was on the fly. Just wait till I get to my prediction.
Yeah, but like that's fine. Your prediction's your prediction. That's what you believe. But just intentionally prodding and being like, you want to remember these games when you had your heart ripped out?
You know, that is one thing I think we do well, though, is that we don't give you the bias. We give it to you real, regardless of how it's going to hurt your feelings or whatnot. So
it doesn't matter, though. YouTube commenters are classic. I got called a Bama or a Oklahoma homer the other day.
Oh.
An Oklahoma homer.
An Oklahoma.
Boomer Sooner,
Out
baby.
of nowhere. I'm like, what? So, yeah, people are just going to attach homerism because I'm not going to tell you that your team's just great all the time.
All right. Going to get back to the real takes right now. My last one, this one is just sentimental. It was in a horrible football game. It was a 2015 Georgia versus Alabama game. It was a pour down from rain, and Alabama beat the crap out of Georgia. But Nick Chubb tied Herschel Walker's record of 13 consecutive 100-yard rushing games with one explosive run.
78-yard run.
Yeah. So I thought that was a cool moment. That was like a stamped approved Nick Chubb. He's legit. He's real deal.
I had a middle school dance that night.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah, bro.
Are we done with that positional preview time?
Are we?
All right. Are we?
That's your call.
Positional preview time. Let's do it. I hate the way people do this. I hate when people put offensive line, Georgia. Offensive line, Georgia, versus each other. Like the two offensive lines play one another. Defensive line, ooh, I'm giving the edge to Bama. I'm giving the edge to Georgia. As if the two defensive lines play one another. Stupid. So that's not how we do it around here. We do it in a vacuum, and then we grade the matchup. So here's how it's going to go. We're doing the line of scrimmage today. We got offensive line, defensive line. I'll break it down first. I'm talking about offensive line in a vacuum. Here's how I evaluate these groups. I'm giving them both an A- for a different reason on both sides. Georgia, a little bit of a lackluster. Coming off of a lackluster performance, I would say the last 2 weeks, to be honest with you. I didn't love the performance against Tennessee Tech. I thought they kind of went through the motions, and I thought against Kentucky, they had the fight brought to them early on in that football game, all right? So I'm giving them an A- from that standpoint. Also, pockets haven't been as clean this year for Carson Beck as they have been in years prior. I'm giving Alabama an A-. I think they're talented as ever. I think they're getting healthy, all right? They're getting a little bit healthier. Here's the deal. I do think they're playing a style of football that is not conducive for the players that were recruited under Nick Saban. And this is something I've talked about on this channel with regards to Kalen DeBoer's offense. They're going to have to update, okay, how they go about recruiting the offensive line position. But for the time being, they've got road graders that they're trying to make really good athletes. The good thing is they were recruited to be really good athletes that road grade. You know what I mean? That's how Nick Saban built his methods. He wanted big and nimble. He didn't just want big, right? So he's got both, but they're not tailored to exactly what Kalen DeBoer does. From a matchup standpoint, okay, do y'all want to do vacuum first around the room and then do matchups? Let's do that.
Vacuum.
Give it to me in a vacuum.
I gave Georgia a B-. I think that they are really talented. They haven't really lived up to that talented title yet. You know, like you said, they kind of went through the motions against Tennessee Tech. Whatever, you can do that. It's Tennessee Tech. Kind of got punched in the mouth against Kentucky, and they've had some key injuries. I think Tate Ratledge really lowered the grade of this just because he was a potential first-round offensive lineman who's no longer on your roster. Now, I get it. Micah Morris is very, very good, and he's a good replacement, but he was a starter. Tate Ratledge was a starter for a reason, so losing him is big. I put Bama at a B for kind of similar reasons you said. I think there's a lot of trying to fit, the old square peg in the round hole with this. I don't think the bye types exactly match up for what this offensive scheme wants them to do. They're still very talented. They're still great, and they still can block well. But there are some times where it's like, they might not be the most equipped to do what you're trying to do right now.
They're better off with a Francis Mwaga at left tackle than they are Caden Proctor.
Correct.
Both first-round picks, both NFL football players, both very different.
Correct.
I gave both units B+. I think Georgia definitely has had some issues, and I think both offensive lines have had some movement, trying to move some pieces around, trying to figure out what their best unit is, trying to figure out what best fits this team. I think that neither one of them have necessarily lived up to what they have in the past, but I still think that these are really good offensive line. I don't think that these are unplayable offensive linemen necessarily. I think that both offensive line get the job done more times than they don't, and I think that both are going to have good moments in this football game, and I think that both are going to do a good job of protecting their quarterbacks for the most part. But there is still room to grow for both of these units, and for both of these units, there are areas where it feels like they are susceptible to where you can get them.
All right, let's go into the matchup on the offensive side of the football for both of these football teams. I'm going to go a C for Alabama. I'm going to give it a C+ for Georgia. Both of these units are elite on the defensive side of the football. We all know this. They're Alabama and Georgia. That's just all you need to know, right? From the line of scrimmage standpoint, they're going to be great. They're going to have NFL football players on the defensive line. The difference in this football game, as I've mentioned to, all right, and as I've talked about, the no Rousseau in this game changes a lot for me because I do think he was their best rusher and their most dynamic football player on the defensive side of the football. So that has changed my opinion on this. I do lean towards Georgia's offensive line having a slightly more favorable matchup.
Yeah, I gave Georgia's defensive line an A, and then I gave Bama's defensive line an A-. I think that, and I've continued to say this about Georgia's defensive line, they have played about as well as you could have asked them up to this point with 3 of their top players being injured.
We're doing matchup.
Oh, we're doing matchup.
Yeah,
now.
matchup on offensive line. How do you grade the matchup?
My bad.
For Georgia and Alabama's offensive line versus the defensive line from the other unit.
Yeah, I wasn't gonna say anything when I heard the A. But I was like,
My bad.
Sorry.
No,
That's
go
on
ahead.
me.
Restart.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So this is Bama O-line versus
Like
Georgia
that?
D-line? Bama O-line versus Georgia
Correct.
D-line?
Correct.
matchup.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
O-line versus D-line matchup.
All right, I got this. All right. I gave this a B. I think that this is a really solid Alabama offensive line. And if you can get them off of the left tackle, that is great. And I think that Georgia is going to find ways to attack this offensive line, but also not to the point where they're just going to try and obliterate everybody and pressure in the pocket, because you can't do that against Jalen Milroe.
Nope.
So I think that Jalen kind of adds into this matchup because you have to play it maybe a little bit differently than you do other opponents. But I do think that Georgia has some areas where they can win and they can make some plays and they can create some havoc plays. So I just gave it a straight B. I don't think that this is a glaring advantage for Alabama, and I don't think it's a glaring advantage for Georgia either.
I gave both C pluses. I think that you're probably going to have a lot of plays in this game where you lose matchups, someone gets blown up, someone's getting pushed back. It's just going to be like, it's going to be a 50-50 matchup. I don't see one unit getting the clear edge coming into it. That said, I do think whoever, kind of asserts themselves throughout this game will probably be the winning team. But either way, both offensive lines are coming into a matchup where it might just be the hardest matchup you play this season. It's going to be two physical units that bring it to each other, so it's not a favorable matchup for either unit.
I like that. All right, on to the defensive side of the ball. We're doing defensive line plus the edge units, okay? So this is defensive tackles, nose tackles, and outside linebackers on both of these squads. I'm giving Alabama an A-. It's still Bama, all right? It's still Bama on the defensive line. They've got all the body types that you would imagine an Alabama roster to have. I mentioned it. No Rousseau gives them a minus in this category. I'm giving Georgia an A, a flat A. Jalen Walker's addition as a rusher and a consistent rusher in the plan, in the game plan, constantly on the field in pass rush situations has really vaulted and really elevated this edge rushing unit. Expect some type of Michael Williams appearance in this football game. That makes a difference as well. So I give Georgia a slight edge with regards to their talent in a vacuum.
I, once again, didn't really give either team an edge. I gave them both Bs. I think that Georgia's offensive line has some more vulnerabilities on the outside. I think Georgia's defensive line is going to be able to get some pressures up the middle and kind of force Jalen Milroe off his spot. Maybe you get a couple of sacks out of that. But again, it's one of those matchups where you're going against arguably the most physical unit you're going to be playing. It's a more talented unit, and there's a lot of schemes around. And oh, by the way, their quarterback, for Georgia's defense, their quarterback is not going to make sacks or pressures or anything like that easy. So it's not a favorable matchup for either one. But you do have talent. There are avenues to success here.
Again, going back to what I was saying earlier, I gave Georgia's defensive line an A. I gave Bama's defensive line an A-. I said it earlier that I think that Georgia's defensive line up to this point has been playing the best football that they could have possibly been playing without three of their best players. Michael Williams has been out since Clemson. They've been banged up with Zaire McLeod missing some games. Warren Brinson, Terry Ingram-Dawkins has missed some time as well. So I think this unit has been playing exceptionally well, and they've been banged up. And I think that they're going to get some guys back this week, and I think that those additions is what makes me bump it up to an A. Going to Alabama's defensive line, it's an A-. That feels like it's almost the floor for Alabama defensive lines. It's never going to get any worse than that. It's still a good unit. The bodies are really good. They're physical. They play mean as heck. So I really like what Alabama has up front defensively, so I gave it an A-.
All right, on to the matchups. I gave Georgia the advantage in the talent department, right, by a slight grade. I'm giving Bama the advantage in the matchup department, and here's why. The edge rushers from Alabama, even without Quay Rousseau, have been, in my opinion, their best bet in terms of getting home. And Georgia's worst bet in terms of giving up pressures right now is the offensive tackle position. So I do think there is an opportunity for Alabama to get home there. I think it's tough to ID where Georgia kind of hunts in terms of getting home, apart from maybe the left tackle if he's not 100% healthy. I do think Jalen Walker is deployed to find that donkey. We've talked about this on this channel before, right? You look at a stable of horses, you ought to be able to identify the donkey. I think in the run game, the donkey right now in terms of getting beat occasionally is 77, but if he doesn't get beat, he beats you and puts you 4 yards downfield. So that's a little bit of a donkey in the run game. I think you have to identify as the game goes on of who's really struggling in a pass protection standpoint from Alabama's defense or offensive line. Georgia's offensive line gets a little bit of a breather, like I said, without Rousseau. Bama's offensive line is getting healthy. I think, as we have all mentioned, very, very even battle right here, and even matchup on the offensive line and defensive line. The line of scrimmage, if you will. All right, before we get into predictions, Jonathan, I had a theory today, and when I have football theories, I deplore your stat acumen to determine whether or not my football theories are correct.
Yes.
My football theory, quarterbacks that have relative success against Glenn Schumann the first time around, if they get the opportunity to face Glenn Schumann the second time, they definitely don't improve upon the performance. Does the stats back that up? Do the stats back that up, I should say?
Yes. So over time, so I went back through. There's actually not a lot of quarterbacks that have gotten 2 shots at Georgia.
Yeah.
But there have been a couple of them that have shown improvements, and I think that there is a common denominator between these two. So Kyle Trask is one of these quarterbacks. 2019, he played at Florida, and then 2020, he went from 20 of 33 for 258 yards and 2 touchdowns to 30 of 43 for 474 yards and 4 touchdowns.
It had like 350 in the first half.
Yeah, so that was one of them. And then this one Georgia fans are going to be familiar with. Joe Burrow got 2 cracks at Georgia. They played him in 2018 in Death Valley. LSU got the win, but Joe Burrow went 15 of 30 for 200 yards. So it was more so Clyde Edwards-Helaire in 2018. And then 2019, it was the Joe Burrow show. It was 28 for 38, 349 yards, 4 touchdowns. Outside of that,
everybody else has gotten progressively worse.
Yeah. So I have a few examples of this. Bo Nix played Georgia a litany of times. He actually progressively got worse. It seemed like every single time he played Georgia. His first performance was the best one his freshman year. He went 30 of 50 for 245 yards and a touchdown.
He threw the ball 50 times his freshman year.
I think 35 of those were in the second half. They had the ball for like 25 minutes in the second half of that football game.
I remember that, yeah.
And then the next year, he went 21 of 40, 177 yards, and only an interception. And then the next year, 21 of 38, 217 yards, and an interception. Felipe Franks actually has a unique one where he got it 2 cracks at them with 2 different teams. He got it with Florida in 2018. He was then benched in 2019, then went to Arkansas.
He was trash both times.
Yeah, he threw 2 picks. His second time playing Georgia, got held to 200 yards. It was 19 of 36. This is an interesting one as well. I didn't know if I was going to include it. This will be the final one that I give. Tua is actually an example of this. He got the whole second half of the national title game in 2017, and then he got the start in 2018 SEC championship game. He went 14 of 24 for 166 yards and 2 touchdowns and an interception in the Natty game. Then he went 10 of 25 for 164 yards, a touchdown, and 2 interceptions against Georgia.
What about Bryce Young? Is he one of these guys?
Oh, yes, Bryce Young. I'll give you his stats right now. He was 26 of 44, 421 yards, 3 touchdowns in the SEC championship game.
Scorched him.
In the Natty, he was 35 of 57, almost threw it 60 times for 369 yards, a touchdown, 2 picks.
Playing from behind in that football game.
So really what I've noticed.
And had no running back.
Not really.
No.
Weren't they banged up?
Yes.
Not really playing from behind.
But one thing I have noticed is that these quarterbacks that get a second crack at Georgia, one thing that has consistently showed up, they turn over the ball more when they play Georgia a second time than they do the first time. So that's kind of something that maybe I would keep an eye on. But Jalen Milroe has not turned the ball over.
I just wanted to know. And you think you found some commonalities between Trask and Burrow?
Yeah, I think that both of those football teams got tremendously better between the 2 years
Not
that
just
they played
the quarterback.
Yeah. I mean, the overall football teams. I mean, 2018 and 2019 LSU, completely different. 2019 Florida, 2020 Florida, completely different football teams.
And we think this is a relatively similar offense from Bama?
Yeah, I would say so.
In terms of performance and volatility?
Yeah.
I would say so, skill set wise, yeah.
Wide receivers have obviously changed a little bit. Centers changed out. But from a core standpoint, same quarterback, a lot of the same offensive line, similar running backs next to you. It's very similar, and it's not like Bama got drastically better, like you mentioned in LSU and like you mentioned with the combination of Florida. So Will Rogers was another one of these guys. Will Rogers lit Georgia the shit up as a true freshman, and then they faced him 2 years later, and it was like, buddy, that ain't happening today. So normally Hugh learns. Hugh learns from what happened in game 1 and figures it out in game 2. It's time, boys. It's time. I hate doing it on Tuesday.
Feels like a Thursday. Bro.
I hate doing it on Tuesday. But we got to get it out. We got to get into that algorithm. We got to get them views, man. Papa's got to pay some bills. Who wants to go first? Not me.
I'll give Jay Will first.
I'll go first.
Let's go.
I'll stand in the paint right now, and I'll give everybody
10
my
toes?
prediction. 10 toes, as always. This was not an easy one to pick, to be honest. I went back and forth with this one. I think this is an evenly matched football game, as it always is when Georgia and Alabama come to compete against one another. So I kind of went back and forth with this. I think Georgia has probably the most well-rounded defense, arguably in the country. I think they have shown that. The secondary is really good. Defensive line has continued to step up. Linebackers are solid all around. But I think that Alabama obviously is one of the most explosive offenses, maybe the most explosive offense in the country as well. So that's the big key matchup for that. My gut tells me that Kirby Smart football teams, and the stats tell you this too, is that they don't have back-to-back bad performances. So I don't think that applying what happened in the Kentucky game is applicable to what's going to happen or what may be on the horizon in this Georgia-Alabama game. So I don't think there's going to be any room to breathe at any point in this football game. I think it's going to be neck and neck the whole way. I think both teams are going to be trading blows. But I do think this is going to come down to Georgia somewhat being more of the more tested team up to this point. And I think Georgia's defense is going to have the ability to make some plays. And I think they are going to have this kind of continue this trend of Jalen Milroe's second shot against Georgia. I'm taking Georgia in a close one. I think Georgia wins 34-30.
All right.
You want to go next?
Nah, man, you got it. Go ahead.
This is a big one for me because we all know what happened last year and how I truly thought that Alabama was going to win that game. I got ridiculed for doing it, and then Alabama won the game.
Are you toe-to-sewing 10 months after right now?
I'm leading up to it.
Okay.
Good
I'm just
Lord,
making
dude.
sure you're
Let
not
me give my
toe-to-sewing
take.
right now. Go
Hey.
ahead. Sorry.
Picked Bama to
Please
win. Got blamed for a curse. They said I was jinxing them. So coming into this game, I thought of all the reasons as to why I thought Bama would win last year's game. Nick Saban, it was too perfect of a moment. Georgia had been riding too high for too long. You don't have any of those issues right now. Now, on the adverse of that, how do you beat Georgia teams? Or how do you have success offensively against Georgia teams? You have to have an elite quarterback that plays out of his mind on one night. You have to basically have some elite wide receiver play. I would say Alabama probably checks off. And you have to force Georgia to make just enough mistakes to where you can take advantage of them. It's never been about, have explosive plays, have this, have that. I know that metric is very popular right now amongst college analysts. It's never been about explosive plays for Georgia. Georgia allows them every now and then, but they usually bow their back enough in the red zone for it to be null and void more than other teams do. So for that reason, I'm going to say Georgia wins this game because, yes, Alabama's going to get explosive points. Yes, Alabama's going to score eventually. Georgia's touchdown streak ends in this game. I'll just go ahead and say it now. But the problem is Georgia will bow their back enough in the red zone. Carson Beck will be efficient enough. And I think like Jay Will said, I just messed up so many names in there.
Yeah, you did.
Jalen Milroe will make enough mistakes for Georgia to take advantage of. Now, that said, Georgia has to hit layups. It's going to be a physical game. There will never be breathing room in this game, but I have Georgia winning 31-21.
We got him by 10.
Late touchdown to put the game away. I think it's a one-score game to the last 5 minutes of the fourth quarter.
Okay.
This Bama team scares me. I think we all know that. I think we all understand that by now. I've been talking about it for 2 weeks now, how the defense is really good, how the offense is the most explosive in college football, in a sport in which explosives are kind of determining factors for wins. I've only picked against Georgia one time in my career doing this. It was 2019 SEC Championship game against LSU. And this football team, ironically, scares me for the very similar reasons that LSU did. The explosivity, right? There's no time in this football game where you're going to be able to breathe as a defense. And it's something we've talked about ad nauseum coming into this game. I think this game for Georgia boils down to two things. Can you do two things? Can you answer explosives? Everyone's talking about limiting explosives. Kirby alluded to it today. I don't think you're going to stop them from having them.
No.
I don't think there's any form of this football game where Alabama doesn't have at least 3 or maybe 4 plays of 20-plus yards. It's just not how teams have been able to have success against them on the defensive side of the ball. So I think you have to answer when they have explosives. It's what we talked about last night, comparing explosives to high school dunks in an auditorium. it gets the people going. Momentum swings in massive ways. You've got to be able to answer those, which brings me to my next point. Georgia's got to be able to create momentum plays just outside of even, like explosives, right? You got to hit your layups. You got to do that. But you got to create momentum plays on the defensive side of the football. Big havoc creating sacks, interceptions, turnovers. We've got to create some type of momentum play on the road. Guys, I'm like y'all. I think there's no way this football game isn't a fourth quarter sweater. I don't think there's any way that we're not all puckered up with 2 minutes left in this ball game. But here's what it boiled down to me, and I feel sick even doing this to our audience. But I trust Alabama to be more explosive in this football game than I do Georgia to win the turnover battle. For that reason, give me Alabama 27-24 in a late field goal.
Ooh, same score as last year, too.
Yeah, I don't feel good about it. I don't feel good about it. I hope I'm wrong. I do. I hope I'm wrong for all chat's purposes as people start to leave in droves right now. And I do apologize for feeling this way. But, it is what it is. Like I told you, I'm not. I thought about doing it before the show. I was like, I'm going to change my pick. I don't feel good about this. I think people are going to hate me for it. But
yeah, you were worried about what people thought about you.
I am, because God forbid, the guy that's, loves himself enough to put his name on the wall is a little self-conscious about how people think of him. Yeah. Sorry.
This is what happens when you have to do predictions on Tuesday. You see what happens?
Come back on Thursday.
This is
Maybe
what
I'll
happens.
feel a little better.
Goodness gracious.
Nah, bro. Stand down on it.
10 toes?
Hey.
7 for Dion?
Something like that.
And
it's not 10.
Look, it's catch-22 anyways, because if we all sat up here and we pick Georgia anyways, then it's, Georgia bias. They are the homers. They don't ever say anything bad about Georgia. So, I mean, no matter what happened, we were going to get criticized for it.
The one thing I will say in this as well is to beat Georgia, it seems like you're going to have to sustain drives, limit offensive possessions. I don't think Alabama is a drive-sustaining offense. They're an explosive offense. They're a boom-or-bust offense, and I think that doesn't really bode well for them because, yeah, you're going to put up points, yeah, you're going to put up yards, but you're not going to control the ball. Georgia's going to have as many possessions. Now, it's all null and void if you win the turnover battle. That doesn't matter, of course, but I don't think Alabama has the offensive stamina to win this game.
All right. Boy, I'm out here getting cooked.
Come on, bro. You got to have thick skin in this industry.
Yeah, that's what you got to have. You got to have thick skin and tremendous amount of marketing backing.
That too.
That would help. All right, I'm good. Y'all good?
Yes, sir.
Appreciate you guys for being here. We'll be back tomorrow. By the way, I have an exclusive film study coming for Patreon only, patreon.com/Brooks Austin. Tomorrow morning, we're going to be taking a look at the SEC Championship game, finding out individual battles, what's going on with individual matchups that we're going to be seeing again on Saturday. Appreciate you guys for being here. Love you. Make sure you're hitting that thumbs up button on your way out. We'll see you. Bye.
I love it. Everybody's